Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Thursday night, March 10th of 2022. It's Guitar Town Hall with me, David NSDALL, my partner here, Ben Coombs. It's going to be off the hook tonight, guys and girls. Off the hook. We're going to talk guitar replicas. We're going to talk guitar bodies and necks. We're going to talk custom guitars. And we're going to talk with Ben. Who are we going to talk with?
Well, we're going to talk with Christopher Locke and Don Ward, various chief bottle washers at respective companies that make things like custom bodies and necks and replicas of stuff and customs and stuff.
Yeah.
And to recap what Dave said, and kind of, it's a part two because we could not get it all into one episode. There's just too much, Dave, and we finally gave up after a couple hours. It was insane. It was awesome. It was, as you said, off the hook.
They have a lot more to show this time. They have worked their rear ends off since the last time we saw them. They've got so much more in the works. We have a lot to show you. I have the new improved neck 5150, if you will, neck on my guitar, and it is. I dare anyone to tell me it doesn't look like Eddie's guitar. I dare anyone.
He dares you. Dares you even.
The neck feels like a Music Man, Eddie Van Halen guitar. It looks like the original guitar. It's just crazy. It's crazy. We'll get more into all this stuff. We have got lots of stuff to show you and talk about. Let's say hello to everyone in the chat, shall we, Ben?
All right. Take a deep breath. I want to shout out Billy Baloney, Thomas Santiago, Tobin1, House of Twang, Terry's 3Gs, Charles 75N, Keith Campbell, Papa Blue, Headstock, Harem, Cushman, NYC, Keith Campbell again because I like him that much. Leo Safko, Bry the sign guy. Use all the letters, Ben.
And Bry, yes, that is my replica on the cover of this video.
Awesome. Dan of New Jersey, Guitar Man 45, Paulie Walnuts. Let's see who else here. Daniel van der Linden. Dutch. There's a lot of Dutch around here. There's a lot of Vanders. Like some of the towns around here, Dave, half the phone book's the V. I'm just saying.
Van der Linden. That's a great name.
It is.
That's a great name for a band, Van der Linden.
It is. I expect dry ice and blue lights at the start of the set. Just saying. Do it. Let's see. Did we miss anybody? Joe Hervey, 84. Who else do we have in here? Oh, no, we're all the way to the top. Perfect. And gotcha. Oh, Desi Nezzy. Don't want to forget Desi. Wow, she is fast. I swear. Yeah. Wasn't even
Jerry
home.
Leica. My buddy Jerry Leica, who I have to say is the grandfather of building these replicas. He is the grandfather. So any of us little guys who are doing it now have to thank that gentleman right there for starting this stuff 20 years ago, maybe 20 plus years ago.
Wow.
So, yes.
Awesome. We also have Octopus Ears, Hit Metalworks, Janice Lala as well, David Scher. Wow, quite the crowd. Jimmy 1647, Headstock Harem. Everybody's showing up tonight, Dave. I get it.
All the important guys, all the important people are here.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So where should we start? You know, welcome back, Don. Welcome back, Chris. You know, you guys, like Dave said, you guys have been busy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, mild understatement.
Yeah. So, all right, let's start with Chris. Tell us what you've been doing since we last spoke to you.
Well, today's the first time I've seen daylight in, I don't know, probably 2.5 months now. basically just been in the shop, busting orders out every single day.
It's crazy, right? The amount of orders that you guys get in have, would you say, at least tripled since the last time we spoke, or since you started doing these upgraded bodies and necks?
Well, let's put it this way. 2020, with all of the stimulus money and all that, was the best year the company ever had. And we're now 2 months and a couple days into the year, and we've almost eclipsed that. It's just been chaos.
It's nuts.
That's pretty insane. That's pretty insane.
Yeah, you know, when I'm having to send him batches of 10 to 20 necks at a time, we're on the next level.
See, I can't even fathom making that many. I mean, God, first of all, there are that many Van Halen fans that are building guitars. And it seems like everyone and their sister and brother are building Van Halen replicas these days, which is great. I don't say anything bad about it. I don't care if they're exact, if they're their take on it. I'm glad people are building guitars. And, you know, when I say building, no one's taking a block of wood and chiseling a body and chiseling a neck out of, you know, whittling with a knife. They're putting guitars together. Basically, we are all you guys are building the bodies and necks, and we're just putting them together. So, you know,
some assembly required. That's what we're saying.
The fact that
my tool of choice is a spoon.
I'm sorry?
My tool of choice is a spoon.
And a butter knife.
And fingernail clippers.
That's it.
Apparently that's what real luthiers use.
This is the one I use.
That's awesome. I was using a chisel and a butter knife. That's what I was using. But you know, it's just great to see that more and more, like on my Facebook feed, more and more people are building their versions of this one guitar. Yeah, they built some Frankies, but this one particular guitar that everyone has to have in their collection, and they're all building it themselves. Not a lot of people are coming to guys like myself and Nick and Chris and Chris Hubbard. They're not coming to us anymore. They're doing it on their own. And, you know, although it takes a little bit of money out of our pockets, that's fine. I'm glad to see that more and more people are building these things on their own.
Sure.
And learning how to build and make guitars. Because, you know, once we stop doing it, who else is going to do it? These people all have to learn.
Yeah.
And you know what? We have Jerry and then you guys and all the other seminal builders in the community to thank for that growing of the community over time.
Well, also, Donnie, you're one of them. You know, you've been building these guitars for a long time. Chris has been making bodies and necks for a long time, you know, and building guitars. But, you know, I know Donnie from just building Van Halen replicas.
Yeah.
You know, I know Jerry Leica for being the grandfather of building guitar, you know, Van Halen replicas. Scott Smith, you know, when I first saw his collection, you know, that big wall of all his stuff, I thought those were Van Halen's guitars. I originally thought that was Van Halen's wall in his house.
He's even got the wood paneling that kind of looks like it.
So, you know, and I think everyone makes that mistake when they first see those guitars for the first time, not knowing who Scott Smith is.
Yeah,
they think that's Van Halen's house.
Yeah.
So, you know, those are the two grandfathers. And then you got guys, you know, like Chris Hubbard and Nick. And, you know, I consider myself, because I'm partners with Nick, but I don't do any of the painting. Nick does all the painting. I just assemble them when I can. But it's crazy. And then everyone these days is doing it on their own, and most cats are doing it really well. everyone makes their version, and you know what? I'm not one of those guys that are going to be super critical of that stripe's not in the right spot. Everyone makes guitars and paints to the best of their ability. Not everyone is going to be an artist. Not everyone has the same eyes that, say, Nick has, that can get every stripe correct by sight. It's not everyone's like that. But the fact that people are doing it and actually painting well, and you don't see big globules of paint. Everyone's taking their time. The stripes are nice and tidy. There's everything. There was a guy that did a 5150 that I saw today. Man, it looked fantastic. Stripes are all correct. He didn't put the black on yet. I don't remember his name.
Was that Andrew Eagle?
Yes. His guitar looks fantastic so far.
I agree.
Like, it looks damn right.
Mm-hmm.
Not one thing was wrong with it.
That guy he's obsessed, and he's taking his time.
Absolutely. Taking his time. A guy where Nick would put black stripes on 20 minutes after the red is kind of like sort of healed, sort of dried. This guy's waiting days for it to really harden, and he's really doing it the correct way.
Yes.
For a guy that wants it to be right. If you wanted it to be more like Van Halen's, you do it 20 minutes.
I was going to say, do it like Eddie did, and the paint all starts falling off, within a day or two, it seems.
That's right, because a lot of people, what they didn't realize is when Eddie would go to Kramer at 8 o'clock in the morning one day and say, I want a completed guitar by the time I leave at 5 o'clock, that's what happened. It would be a body and the neck, not painted yet. It would be painted through the day and be done and built by the time he left. In fact, I think that's how the Hot for Teacher guitar was done, or damn close. So there you go.
That's pretty damn cool that you could show up and have a guitar built for you in a day. If anybody deserves it, it's him. But that's pretty badass. I'm just thinking about it like rock stars. That's so awesome.
When you're Eddie Van Halen, you could pretty much get whatever the hell you want at whenever you want it. Steve Vai's the same way. When Steve Vai goes to Ibanez and say, I need this done, they'll say, okay, when you need it by, I'll do it now. They just do whatever they want for these guys. And rightfully so, because these guys are guitar heroes. They're our heroes.
They earned it.
They did earn it. But anyway, let's get into this. So last we spoke, you guys had an exact body and an exact neck that you guys did all kinds of homework and digital work on to make this as exact. You reverse engineered the neck feel of a Music Man guitar to get the 5150 neck. You also did a whole bunch of homework on the headstock design and the contours of the headstock design, and where the tuning holes are placed, and everything else that you need to make the most correct version of the 5150 guitar. Now, since then, you've done, or you're in the middle of doing, a 1984 replica headstock. And tell us about that. Tell us about whatever other improvements you've done that you can talk about, and let's see some of these things.
Sure. So I'll take over on the 1984 since I have one. One thing that happened since then is I got a Pacer. So this is my 1982 Pacer. Of course, Chris had two of them last time we talked, but I got my own, and I got mine because of the Rockinger, because we hope to be producing these at some point. If you have a replica, need for that on your replica, but that's down the road. Anyway, I got a beautiful B2 Pacer, and this is the original neck that came on it. I did not want to put the mileage in this neck. It doesn't play great, so I just made one of my own, and that's it. Anyway, when I got this neck, I got a little bit more info about the headstock transition, and that's because it's a Rockinger equipped neck, and therefore it doesn't have the Floyd shelf. So I had a little bit more detail about how this transition works and things like that. That allowed us to kind of slightly modify the headstock transition. In practice, it didn't really change you can't really see the difference, but it makes me happy, especially if I want to make, a Rockinger equipped neck. So with a little bit extra information, we were able to produce the 1984, and I'm also working on the ad and the Hot for Teacher. So let me grab the 1984 and the other Kramer necks we've made real quick.
And hello to everybody that's joining in with us here. Lots of cool kids showing up.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the first production 1984. I've done one other, but it was a rush order for Nick for one of his builds. So if you look at this compared to the 5150 headstock side by side, they're similar, but the 1984 has a longer, bit droopier, larger headstock, especially.
Yeah, it's a Jewish nose is what it is.
That's one way to put it.
And I can say that because I'm Jewish, so I'm also Italian. So, any of you Italian Jews out there, you're screwed. I can say whatever I want.
I just thought it was colder in the room when the 5150 was built.
Fair. So the tuner holes as well are placed quite differently, and you can see it's kind of hard to see the birch plugs, but they're there. And due to the difference in tuner holes, they actually line up quite differently. Now, I'm convinced, based on looking at the pictures of the 5150, let me get a close-up for you guys. If you see, there's no birch dowel through this near this third tuner hole because it appears to be placed right on the original tuner hole. So I think after they made a couple of these necks, Paul Unkert was like, well, why plug that hole if I can place the tuners such that it's just right where it is? So that's, a little interesting tidbit. But anyway, the difference in the tuner hole placement, the difference in the headstock, and just an absolute minute difference to this little bit of transition that's left after the Floyd shelf.
Well, let me talk about that for a second, because that is super important. I've played the Vetus guitar many times. I have pictures of me playing it, and when you look at that headstock, that transition, right? Put your hand on the transition part,
right here,
right there, where that swoop is.
Yeah,
it is very thin. It comes down more like a 54 Stratocaster, where it's really convex. I think
it's a tight radius.
It's not shallow. It's really dug in deep.
Yes.
So the headstock is very thin at that one point.
Yes.
And that's the way it is on those original guitars. And that is the way these guys are making it. And that's the way Donnie's making it now. So is it not as sturdy? That remains to be seen. I think it's just as sturdy, but it's more exact. It's less, a little bit less wood in that area, and that's the way it should look.
Well, on that topic, because people have asked me about that before, and that's a key detail we've always been concerned with is the headstock transition, because it makes a big difference to how the Floyd shelf ends up. And that's because when these guys, you have to think about this, when these guys made these necks at this time, the Floyd was not a forethought. It was an afterthought. They transitioned the headstock for a regular nut, and then they came in later and dropped it down. So whatever the geometry of that transition was, they had to go to that depth whether it covered the whole nut or not. So
correct.
These particular Kramer necks, and if you look at my original beak neck, that transition starts right after the nut.
Right.
So
yeah, it's really dug out. It's carved out.
Absolutely. So because of that shelf doesn't fully support the nut, and people are like, oh, is that bad or whatever? I don't think so. There are Kramer necks out there that were made this way that have held up great for 40 years. No
Look,
problem.
I had a white Kramer 82 Kramer Pacer. Let me get myself on there. I had a white 82 Kramer Pacer with a Floyd on it that was original to the guitar, and I had a blue one, 82, that had that very tiny shelf on it. They both had that tiny shelf on it, and this new guitar neck has that tiny shelf on it. The nut fits on there perfectly. It doesn't move. It's plenty of room. It's fine that it hangs over for a little bit more than you think, because most of it is held on with the two metal screws that go behind the nut.
Yeah.
Not two little wood screws that are going top down, coming behind the neck and into this metal nut. So
As
it is not going anywhere.
So I do have a R3 nut here, just as an example to show you. I kind of got to hold it awkwardly, but you can see how it hangs over. Now, from a, how sturdy it is, as long as that shelf goes past those holes, the force that's pulling this nut down is fully supported. So as long as this thing starts past those holes, it's fine. I mean, it doesn't, to some people who are super OCD, it doesn't look right. But then on the other hand, if you're OCD about it being right, then you better have
it. Does look right. If you've seen enough old ones,
right.
It looks right.
Absolutely.
If you haven't seen an 82 or an 83 pacer, you're not going to know that's correct. You're going to think, well, they skimped out or the nut's not cut right.
Right.
And the truth is, it is absolutely cut right.
And it's interesting. You guys probably know that Lynn Ellsworth, who made the Boogie Bodies necks, was close with Floyd Rose. Now, Lynn, he made necks with a transition that started much after the nut, unlike the pacer I just showed you, like way more than a fender would be. Now, what's interesting is if you take a new old stock Boogie Bodies neck and you drop that shelf down to the depth it should be, it exactly covers the width of this nut. Now, my question perhaps is that maybe Floyd and and Lynn based this nut on the Boogie Bodies neck. Maybe that's why it's this width. That might be a shot in the dark, but it's interesting that if you drop a new old stock Boogie Bodies neck down, it's exactly that width. Now, the other neck manufacturers didn't have that luxury because they weren't working with Floyd. Floyd was working with Lynn.
Right.
But it's an interesting thought because, like we were saying, these guys who made these necks back then were not designing their necks for Floyd's. That was just a complete
Well, yes. In 85, when everything changed again and they went to the hockey stick style, things changed again. Yeah. And that at that point, the shelf fit the whole nut.
Yeah.
They changed it. But like you said in the beginning, the nut was not the focal point. Yeah. That was an afterthought. Once they figured that they were going to use these Floyd Rose units on these guitars, they did some fine tuning to their cutting. Yeah. And it's more where it's more, you could fit more of the nut on that shelf than you could on the earlier ones.
Yeah. So those are the I showed this one briefly, but just to kind of show it off on its own, I just pulled this off the CNC today. This is for a certain Van Halen replica nut that we all know. I might not out him, I suppose, unless he wants to claim it. But he had to have one after he saw the last show. He ordered a 7th tuner. So,
you could tell him. You could tell him who it's for. I'll take the heat.
Go ahead.
It's for Rob Johnson. I told him and showed him mine, and he had to make his more exact, which I don't blame him.
Yeah.
He has a great Butala neck on his guitar, and realized that Donnie and Chris make a more exact neck, and he ordered one, and I don't blame him.
In that particular one, I really dig because I can see it's a little more contrast.
Yeah.
That of I'm like, oh my god, it's so obvious at that time, and I didn't know how. I knew that something was glued on from watching Dave over the years, but until you guys were on last time, I was I had no idea. And then, then you do stuff like that, and that's why I loved on. Because he's just there you go, Ben.
I've got it all ready for you.
It's right there. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I'm again.
I get why Rob has to have one, Dave. I get it.
We spoke about all this in part 1, and I was so gung ho and so my interest level is so high, and it's there again. It's like finally some people that get it. They get it. They understand.
They really get it.
They're not just going, well, yeah, I'm gonna make something that's kind of like it. No, they're making something that is it, and it's amazing.
An important part of the process too is that I think we, perhaps unlike some people, I'm not trying to single anyone out, certainly, but I think this is an uncommon thing for any person in any field, is that we're always questioning what we do. We're our biggest critics, and I think that's an advantage to us. We're constantly going back, looking at the stuff we've already developed. We think we've got it spot on, but we know that there's stuff that we might have missed. So we're always going through that cycle, looking back at our existing models and just fine-tuning them ever so slightly with each iteration.
Yeah.
I think that helps us get there.
So, Chris, all right, so now we've seen the two necks, and there's a Kramerad neck coming at some point, which is also amazing, which is a third iteration of that style of headstock that I will say, and I may get in trouble, I saw some sort of finagled drawing of it that looks exactly like it, that you guys and girls will lose your minds over when you're building a Kramerad somewhere down the line.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need that as well. But Chris, let's talk about some of these bodies behind you. Let's talk about that. First of all, that Boogie Body's body right behind you, or the Boogie Body style looks like with the Strat head, with the Strat input jack. What is that?
So that's the Unchained body. So it's the girthy one. It's 2 inches thick. Got the deep contours. I mean, it's
God.
I don't know, probably as good as we're gonna get, I would say.
And that's mahogany, yes?
Yep, mahogany.
Yeah.
2-piece.
My God, look at that thing.
That's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, it's really not bad. It's I don't know, probably 4.5, 5 pounds, maybe. Not too bad.
Well, that's not bad.
That's not bad at all, since mahogany is a very heavy wood.
Yeah.
5 pounds.
It depends on the species.
Yeah.
This one here is Honduran mahogany. Just for the weight.
Yeah. I like it.
Like African mahogany, it's like that body would probably be like 8 pounds. I mean,
right.
Heavy.
I found too that both Honduran and African mahogany vary substantially inside their own species. Unlike, swamp ash, though that's more of a marketing term, is going to be a certain weight typically if it's the same shape. But you can get really heavy African mahogany bodies or reasonable African mahogany, and same thing with Honduran. And I think the reputation mahogany gets for being heavy, and this is to Chris's point about that being a reasonable weight guitar where you wouldn't expect it. I think mahogany gets a reputation for being heavy because it's always built around Les Pauls, which is a really thick body.
Correct.
So that's why people think, oh, mahogany's heavy because I have this mahogany guitar and it's heavy. Well, no, it's because it's really thick.
Well, also, let's look at it this way. When you're talking Les Pauls, you're talking two woods that are on the heavier side. You're talking about mahogany and maple.
Yeah.
So you put them two together, you're going to get a heavy guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And even on the outside, even on the light side of the light side of heavy, you're going to get an 8-pound guitar. There's very rarely you're going to get a 7-pound Les Paul or 7.5-pound Les Paul unless it's chambered. The lightest you're going to get really is in the 8-pound range. Now, if you're talking Les Paul Jr. or Les Paul Special, which is just mahogany,
just happen to have it handy. Look at that.
This guitar is 7 pounds because there's no maple cap on it.
Yeah.
It's just a mahogany body and neck with a rosewood fretboard and a rosewood holly headstock. And it's a 7-pound guitar because you don't have another piece of heavy maple on top of it.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So mahogany as a whole is not as heavy as you think. Or it doesn't have to be as heavy as you think.
Wait. Yeah, I was thinking about that first way. I was looking at that mahogany body because Chris holding it up, I'm like, oh, it looks so thick. I'm like, wait a minute. I play Les Pauls. They're thick. Why couldn't I play that? And that's got an arm relief. Even better.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird, though, because it's, in the Strat style. And then you see it at 2 inches thick, and it just changes everything about it.
I'm curious to try something like that.
It's like a pretty comfortable body, really, because of the contours are super deep. and it's really not bad, and especially
It is
with
really
the
nice. Yeah, Chris made me a body for circles build that I did that actually Rob Johnson owns now, and my God, was that guitar comfortable? You know, it was not heavy. It was a piece of light mahogany. The guitar
That's
and neck,
that's just like
guitar and
extra
neck
curvy.
were both made by Chris, and it was a great guitar. The reason I don't own it is because I'm kind of not into having a lot of Van Halen style builds at the moment for myself. I have no problem making them for anyone. I'll make you anything you want. But for me, I don't need that many for myself. But and Rob Johnson, he basically has everything that you can think of, and he took basically all my builds or most of them, and you know, because they were all upgraded. He also builds his own, but at the time, the ones that I was getting rid of were all upgraded from his, and he was like, "I'll take it, I'll take it, I'll take it." Okay, there you go.
Rob's
And,
crazy.
and that's what happens. Yeah, but
We got, right now in this call, there are 4. Yeah, between Chris's video and my video, there's 4 either bodies or necks that are going to Rob in process right now.
and that's great.
Yeah.
That's, you see, he's always upgrading to get the closest he can get to what the originals were.
Yeah.
And man, that's fantastic. It's fantastic. It shows that he is into this craft. He loves what he does. He wants to have, you know, the closest to whatever the original was. I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Keith Campbell asks Chris the question. He says, "Are the circles, root, and the hog identical cuts, and scallops and radii? Are they identical?"
I'll defer to Donnie because he's the expert on the boogie bodies.
Yeah, so with anything boogie bodies, the answer is pretty much no. Now, particularly with the contours, because I actually own, I don't have it here, I should have grabbed it, but I own a Boogie Bodies short scale. Boogie Bodies was doing these 24 3/4 inch scale strats where you could put their neck in it and it would convert it to 24 3/4 inch scale. And I have an early experimental one, but I got it in like partially finished shape. There's no bridge features. The contours were rough sawn, and Lynn was bandsawing those contours. He would stick it on the bandsaw and bandsaw out the rear contour, forearm contour, and because of that, all the contours were different. If you look at the Rude, the rear contour is much shallower. It's the same general shape, but it's much shallower because that's just the way the bandsaw cut on that one. The Unchained has by far the circles, and Rasta guitar has by far the deepest cut on the rear. It goes almost all the way to the spring cavity. We have researched particularly the circles in the Rude, and
I was looking. That's a huge carve.
Yeah, you see it almost gets to the spring cavity.
No wonder it's so light. That's a lot of material removed right there.
For sure.
Yeah, it's insane. That really looks. I mean, it looks exact. If you look at the picture of Eddie with the pickaxe and that guitar is sitting on the floor, actually that would be the hog, wouldn't it?
Right. It would.
That's sitting on the floor. That contour looks exact to it.
Right.
It's ridiculous how cool that is.
The other differences would just be the rear cavity, and the circles is a real head scratcher because if you saw it has that kidney bean shape.
Yeah, it's a kidney bean.
We've never seen that particular cut on other boogie bodies that I've seen anyway. They usually have the Warmouth style one.
I'm thinking that may have been the first one that was done, and they didn't really know what they were doing at the time or how big the cavity needed to be, or the guitar was so heavy that they just took out that much wood to begin with. Because if you look at the Rude guitar, it's a lot smaller and it's kind of like square shaped.
Yeah, it's oh no, it's not. Wait, is the Rude like this? Okay,
that's the Rude, yes.
So this is the Warmouth style cavity. And Lynn came up with it, but he was working with the Warmouths, and that's what they kept using. And I think Warmouth might still use that cavity on some builds. But that's what was on all of the other hogs, to my knowledge, including Eddie had one of those short scale guitars that I was talking about, and he was pictured playing it in 1984. That one had that style cavity too. So that's a good point. It might be huge because either that was the first one and they didn't know yet, or perhaps Ed complained that the early ones were too heavy, and that was Lynn trying to relieve some weight.
Well, that's the whole thing. That's the reason he did not like that guitar, and the reason why he ended up giving it to Dweezil, because he said the guitar was way too heavy.
Yes.
And Wolfgang still has the Rude guitar. It's still the original guitar with some upgrades to it, an upgraded Floyd. It's got a pickup ring. I think it has a Wolfgang pickup in it, and a newer. Actually, I think it's a Fender replica neck on it.
Yep.
But it's that original guitar
Yes,
because he kept it because it was lighter in weight, and he actually liked the way that one sounded. So he kept it.
He used that one on the 1981 tour. The reason these guitars were used is because Floyd Rose's didn't have fine tuners yet, and he had all these drop D songs.
Correct.
So the only way he was going to play a drop D song and switch right between is by grabbing another guitar pre-tuned. So at the very beginning, you see him with the Circles guitar, but that didn't last long at all. For the rest of the tour, if you see him with his drop D backup, it's the Rude. So I completely agree with that take.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are much more pictures of him with the Rude guitar than there are with the Circles. I think there's 4 or 5 pictures of that, but there's a ton of pictures with the Rude. And I think there may be 3 or 4 pictures when the Circles was repainted as the Rasta in '82.
Yeah.
That's it. He hated that guitar. But, yeah. So, Chris, show us some other stuff you have behind you. You have 2 different Frankenstein bodies. Is that are they the same? Just two copies of it?
No, they're different. So we have two different versions of the Frankie body. Where this one here is what we call our standard basic spec Frankie body. It's kind of like the similar routes we've been doing for years and years and years and years and years, but it's a little cheaper cost.
Now, what makes it cheaper?
Well, I'll show you whenever I pull up the what I call the high definition body. So this body here, it's the pickup routes are a little bit more haggard looking. Let's put it that way. And the other big difference is the right here, and it's not really showing it too well, but it's got the chisel strike. That area there is 3D contoured the way Ed's is, and it's just a little bit, I don't know,
more exact
than what Ed's is. And then we have the fake Floyd posts from where Ed drilled in the wrong spot whenever he was installing them. So, Tom Anderson, he fixed it and had to do a couple tweaks. God, this is really hard to do this. But yeah, he changed. God damn it! He changed the intonation point where the posts were and moved them towards the neck pocket.
Correct.
And the leftover holes on the back are what that was Ed's handiwork.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't even. You know what? That's something I just learned. I mean, I knew that the Floyd posts have been moved forward. I knew all that, and I knew that was done in like 86, 85 or 86. But I didn't know that those 2 holes were in the back. I didn't. Yeah. I had no idea those were there.
I mean, the guitar is really like a piece of Swiss cheese with all the holes that he has in it from his little apparatuses that he put all over it and all of his strap button locations. But it's
so he played it basically the whole time he gigged with that guitar. The posts were in the wrong spot. Is what we're
until 1985. Yes.
But it was retired before then, which is the funniest.
Part. That's what I'm like, and it was so it's like that's like the worn out car that you decide to get restored after the fact, and it's there. Well, but
if you listen to there's a couple of shows, and the US Festival being one of them, and the Largo, I guess it would be Baltimore, Maryland, or Baltimore, Washington video that's out there, you can clearly hear his guitar not in tune the whole show.
Yeah.
And it's because of intonation.
Mm.
Both shows. I mean, it's Eddie Van Halen. He's kind of slippery the way he plays anyway, kind
Sure.
of bends.
He can
bends
probably hide
notes
so
into
much. Yeah.
He bends notes into tune.
Well, that's what I'm
So-
saying. Like, I didn't know. I
Yeah.
would not know that.
But
Yeah,
if you hear him playing chords at some point, especially near the ends of the shows, where the high E string is already out of tune to begin with, but since those posts are too far back, you can hear how out of tune the guitar is.
Mm.
You know, the funny thing about the like you were saying, he plays it in tune. When he brought it to Tom Anderson, he wasn't bringing it to get the post fixed. He was just bringing it for general maintenance. And Tom and his tech, Benny, who has told this story, and we've emailed him and stuff like that. But Benny said that they've seen a few guys who will sit down and play a guitar that's out of, not intonated, and the guy playing it, a legendary guitarist who's playing it doesn't know, because that's their ear makes their hand, unconsciously move in a certain way,
Right.
to play it in tune. And the only reason they moved it forward is because they just figured, okay, we got the guitar here for maintenance. These posts are not where they should be. Let's just fix them. And Ed never played it after that. Is it because of that? I don't know.
I almost wonder though, was Ed already down a rabbit hole in a sense, because obviously he's not afraid to work on a guitar, but at some point he's just like, you need a fresh set of eyes or something, And
Well, here's the other thing. At the time he was playing, I'm sorry, Ben, I talked over you. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, Tom Anderson is a great person to take it to if you're going to take it to somebody, right? Like you can give him a bag of parts and he's going to give you an amazing guitar, guaranteed.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
And at the time, Eddie had switched over to the 5150 Kramer guitar, which, of course, those posts and the intonation on that guitar was much better. So I'm sure, because you can't say Eddie does not have a good set of ears. He probably has some of the best ears in rock and roll history. You can't tell me that he did not hear that his guitar was out of tune. So I'm thinking when the guys at Anderson said, hey, your posts are in the wrong spot, you might want us to change this. I'm sure he said, yeah, do whatever's got to be done to make that guitar right.
Right.
Exactly.
So that kind of adds into another point that what we did on these bodies. So previously on the old Frankie body that we were doing, this cutout here for the trem arm,
Right.
it used to be pretty much flush with the route and the cavity. And after the Met photos came out, we've really found out there's no way that's the case. Reason being is you look on the back of the guitar and the back cavity, I mean, there's a little ledge in there.
Yeah, you can see it
in the Met
absolutely.
photos. And another thing, and I'm sure my competition is feverishly writing down their notes so they can make changes. But there's also like a cutout, like a recess.
Okay.
And that's kind of where Tom Anderson had to do his magic to be able to shift that Floyd forward, because otherwise it was hitting the cavity, hitting the wall. So he had to move it forward to get the big block to clear it.
Well, that makes sense because, with that big block, if you don't cut that cavity a little bit, the Floyd is going to sit up a little bit because that block won't fit.
Right.
Yeah,
And that was kind of another thing that we did when we updated the bodies. Is we have a bunch of different Floyds here, and we found that the vintage early 80s Schaller Floyds, for whatever reason, the collar for the arm was really big. So
it's too big. It rubs against that area.
Right. So it's that little notch that's cut out for the arm itself. It's probably a little too big, but we wanted to cover our bases, no matter what tremolo that they put on it.
Better that it's too big than not big enough.
Exactly.
And, here's another thing, another fun fact that people may or may not realize, that back in 1985, when all this work was done, the guitar had an FRT5 Floyd Rose on it. which was the same prototype Floyd Rose that's on the 5150 guitar.
Okay.
Now, today, that guitar has a regular vintage Schaller style Floyd Rose, like original, like a production model Floyd Rose on it with the smaller block. So it doesn't matter anymore because it has the small block on it. But back then, when it had the fat steel block on it, because these FRT5 bridges are different, they have a big steel block on them.
I see that. Because I assume that's correct. So I see
the way
that.
they were made. So you have to make
Wow.
that cut in that route to accommodate that.
Not to get too sidetracked on that, but why did Floyd Rose go to such a smaller block?
Well, Schaller
Probably
did.
for that reason. Probably for that reason, to make
Just
it more,
easier to transplant it on into other guitars.
to make it so it'll fit in a regular Strat routed.
Gotcha.
back.
Okay.
What's
So
interesting?
I'm learning a ton as usual here.
What's interesting about the history of the Floyd is that so many different people were making these units. They were all Floyd Rose official trims, but it wasn't all Floyd. It wasn't all Fernandez. It wasn't all, I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who made the whale tail prototypes.
Oh,
was
it's like not Anderson, but it's like something like that. It's,
well, we used to think it was APM, which is American Precision Metalworks, but
not.
It's not. It's some local machine shop guy. And the reason that happened is because they wanted Schaller to make the Floyds at that time, but Schaller was behind on tooling up, and they needed to get Floyds for their guitars because of their contract with Floyd. So they had some local guy make like 800 of them, and that's why the FRT5 is coveted and different than the Schallers. But point being, all these different machine shops and people are making a trim to a loose spec, but they weren't telling them that the saddle should be shaped a certain way and that the T-block should be like this, and the block should, maybe they were giving them specs on the block, and then the spec changed, like what David said. But that explains all these minutia in the differences as the Floyd developed, is that there are a bunch of different people making them.
So people want to know how to get a hold of you, Chris.
Trying to live comment while this is going on, and for whatever reason it didn't post, but the website lockecustomguitars.com.
Yes,
and probably the easiest way to get a hold of us. Sometimes through social media, we get inundated with messages and stuff, but they don't always come through. So they'll wind up in my spam folder, and then I'll check it 3 months later and find out I have a bunch of messages in there, and and it's like, oh, oops. But yeah, the website is the best way to get a hold of us.
Mm-hmm. And here's another question. Brian the
I
Stein
just
guy.
threw it in the chat there because I got the blue wrench. I can throw web links in there and stuff.
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
Brian,
and there's Terry right behind me. There.
And by the way, guys and girls, don't be afraid to send some super chats when you're asking questions. We'd be happy to take any super chats you want to give us. Brian the Stein guy says, can you guys make a relic PV Wolfgang bird's eye maple neck, PV body striped like the Kramer 5150? Well, I'm going to help them answer that. They're not going to paint your guitar for you. They're not going to do that. You got to paint your own guitar to make it look like whatever guitar you want.
You got to get it at the rattle cans.
Now you guys can answer whether or not you make the bodies and necks like that.
Okay, so bird's eye maple, basically no. And we touched on this on the last show.
Yeah.
That's an angled headstock, right? It's got a 10-degree headstock.
Yes.
There's no reliable way nowadays, like there was back then, to get, at least for guys like us. I mean, maybe there's like a super secret distributor or something, but we've tried very hard, but we have not found a reliable source to get bird's eye maple thick enough to yield that headstock angle. It's got to be like twice as thick as a regular neck blank. And finding that in bird's eye is just not going to happen. We are working on developing and have done a lot of R&D on PV style necks, but it's going to have to be plain maple if you want it. If you can find the bird's eye maple blank for us that fits our dimensions to make it, by all means, you could send it to us and we could use it to make the neck. But we just are unable at this time to source it and offer it as a product. in terms of the body, we're working on that too. We have an original PV body and we're working on it, but I don't have any information on when that's going to come out. Chris could maybe say some more.
Now, the next conceivable question is, well, how can PV get this wood and, builders like you can't? Well, do you understand? Maybe you don't understand how big and how much money PV had. Now, they're not really doing much right now. They're still building guitars, but their buying power is ridiculous. It is one of the biggest American guitar companies out there.
Mm-hmm.
They are humongous. They can pretty much get what they want to get because they have the money to do so. And they also have the means to find it. So that's probably why they can get it, and smaller companies aren't so lucky.
Yeah.
Plus, they have all the tools and machines they need to make that tilted headstock. They just have those machines available.
The other thing that, these big companies, they're dealing directly with the mill, the people that are buying the lumber from the forest, and they're the ones that are actually dealing with the mill and processing their stuff to the dimensions that they want. Us, on the other hand, we're dealing with companies that buy from mills for guys like us, but they put in what they know is going to sell, and custom requests just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine, the demand for that dimension wood just isn't there. Whereas for other applications of, say, bird's eye, I don't know what else they're using it for, but I'm sure it looks pretty. Because as guitar players, we're like, hey, look at that wood. It doesn't matter what it is in life. We notice wood.
Well, to tell you the truth, I mean, you guys are making the jump version neck for the Frankenstein, which was bird's eye. And for that guitar, you can get that wood because, first of all, it's not an angled headstock. It's one piece. It's a one-piece neck, and you can make it out of that. I've seen you do it before. You may not get the best pieces, but you can get that.
Yeah, that's more approachable for sure. It's still not the easiest because it has to be that full 1 inch. Now, to Chris's point, what lumber retailers, we'll call them, are selling are shafts like this. This is a bird's eye maple neck, beautiful. Just something I have laying around. But you can see how thin the shaft has to be because there's a fretboard on top of it. For a one-piece neck, it's one piece.
Let me get you on here. Hang on.
Sure. So that shaft is about 3/4 thick. This particular neck might be a little bit over 3/4, but they're selling you bird's eye. They're processing bird's eye because the majority of the people using this stuff are putting a laminated fretboard on, 2-piece construction. The demand for bird's eye and 1-piece necks is not as large. Now you can see the 1-piece neck, the full thickness of the neck is 1 piece of wood. So you need a blank that can accommodate that.
Right.
And you're really not going to find it very easily. We have found people in the past who were able to sell us limited quantities, and we've done the jump beaks. And I will say, we have made a couple PV wolf necks. I'm not ready to say that we're going to offer them. We've made a few kind of prototype, because a guy found some stuff and said, if I send this to you, will you build it? And I said, sure thing. So we've done a couple. It's out there. I don't know what the guy paid. I have a feeling from my research and talking to some lumber suppliers who said, yeah, we can get you this stuff. I have a feeling he paid more money than you want to pay for the whole neck for just the block of wood. So it's just unfeasible at this moment for guys like us in the quantities we're doing to source that stuff. But if you really want it and you go out looking for, it's different lumber yards and mills, and they'll cut it for you and you pay whatever you're going to pay for it, we'll do it. You just got to find it because we're not finding it.
Right. So, Chris, I noticed that you picked up the 5150 body.
Yeah, if you want to just go into this one. So this is the latest and greatest 5150 body. This is featured in Swamp Ash, and it also has our new carved grain into the forearm.
Look at that.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So
That
yeah,
That saves a
your
lot of
body.
hassle.
And it's really cool. There's a lot of things about these bodies that photos really don't do it justice. Especially this damn guitar. It's so hard to photograph and make it look the way it does in person.
Yeah.
Um,
Before you go any further, let me just read this. Tubin in One, thank you for the super chat. He says, after part 1 show, I have a 5150 ordered from Dave, and I'm so excited to experience the artisan work of Chris Locke and Donnie. Cheers, guys.
appreciate it.
Cheers,
Thank
my
you.
friend.
Thank you very much, Chad. Really appreciate it. All right, Chris, keep going.
So yeah, there's a lot of things about, like, even the 84 reissue that these guys are saying, yeah, you need to get it. Well, what those guitars don't really show, or what they have, is the authentic way that Kramer did their tummy cuts. I mean, it's all modernized the way you would manufacture today versus how they did it, where it's all just they just went at it in whatever means they did. I think probably with like big belt sanders and stuff, but it doesn't have the authenticity that the vintage guitars did.
Now, can you hold that body up a little more so we can all see it? There you go. Yeah.
You can almost see it in the light here, the way that the contour. It's not.
Yeah. Okay.
It's more rounded.
It's not a straight line. Like, it's not harsh machine made. Like CNC precision.
Right.
No, that's awesome.
What's funny is
it's CNC, but it's CNC on purpose like that.
Right. Yeah.
But those carves in that forearm cut where you see the grain, that's just genius right there. Now you got builders that are doing that by eye, and you're now giving that to them, which is unbelievable. That
you just saved so much swearing right there.
That's a major upgrade right there.
Yeah. Holy crap.
So
so much cursing saved.
The carved grain on the body, it should be, if you're really going for that super authentic replica, it should really only be used kind of like as a guide.
Yes.
This is where it's supposed to be, but if you want to fine tune it, that's the way you're going to get it to make it look 100%.
And I'll show you what it's supposed to look like after it's painted. That is what it's supposed to look like right up there. That's what you're supposed to see when you're done painting and relicking it like the original one. Like, there's a hand coming out of that white area.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what those scrape marks do to that. And if you look at the guitar before it had all the relicking on it, you can see where those marks were made. You can see as the paint started to get worn out how it looked, and eventually became this. So,
was that like an end grain thing, like that caused that on the original?
I would imagine that's just how the grain of the body was when they cut it, and it may have actually just been, like Eddie's original. It may have been a second, and Eddie was like, "Just give me that body, whatever."
Right, so
it wasn't filled. It wasn't wood filled. There was no wood filler in it. It was just that, and he painted over it, or whoever painted it.
And I so Chris is immediately see this is you can see I can totally see the way the grain goes. Thank you.
Right, so that's
awesome.
The end grain, kind of how Ed's was really.
Right.
And for whatever reason, this body didn't quite come out so hot like Ed's did with how those rings are on the forearm.
Right.
So it's just the luck of the draw on how that's going to come out. I've had some bodies that are close, how it, the rings on the forearm come out, but most bodies, not so much.
Correct. While I have this guitar in my hands, I'm going to show you guys and girls what the what the new neck looks like and the way it's supposed to look on this guitar when you're done with it.
Look at that. I don't know how you got it so dirty so fast, Dave. You never wash your hands, do you?
Well, I sacked it a few times too.
It's like you're outside making mud pies, came inside, played your guitar. Get it? Yep.
Unfortunately, because I don't have great lighting here, you can't see where the old holes were plugged for the old headstock. But they're there, I guarantee it. And when you make your neck, you will see after you paint it that the plugs are very visible, and they should be, because that's the way it was on the original guitar.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's an element when we look at this stuff. A lot of people who came before us got a lot of the aspects of these parts somewhat visually correct, and that's where they stopped. But just like if you're an art fan, you'll know there's an aspect of the texture of these things, textural accuracy, that's the sort of thing, like the dowels, the way the paint sinks into the dowels.
Right, and look how the nut sits off the shelf. That's the way it was on his guitar. That's just exactly the way it needs to be. It's about 3/4 on and 1/4 of it is off. So that's the way it's supposed to be. Let me show you from this angle as well. You see how thin that area is? It should be really thin like that, exactly like that. The whole headstock is absolutely correct and perfect. Let me see if I can get those holes, the doweled holes. I don't think I can.
Can't believe I never noticed there was a string retainer before. I'm just going to say that right here on air. Didn't realize there was a string retainer, let alone two. Well, the second one I know, because the 7th tuner.
Well, that second one has been on here since the inception of the guitar.
Oh, really?
It wasn't because of the 7th tuner.
Well,
it was because the extreme downward angle of the headstock.
Right.
The high E and B string would hang off the headstock. So even with the long string retainer on it, he needed that second string retainer to keep the E string on the headstock.
Huh.
Yeah, it pulls it over so it sits under the retainer. If it wasn't there, the retainer would not capture it. So that's something, we always used to wonder, why the hell is that thing there? It just the way they made that particular headstock with where the tuner holes were, oh shit, it's not under the retainer. We got to shift it over. Just kind of a hack.
You got to love the 80s where, hey, we're going to make a headstock that looks cool.
Right.
It ain't going to work, but it'll look cool. And we'll make it work afterwards. That's awesome.
Mully's here with us. I think he has a question. I have to find it. Dave or Ben, give a thanks to Chris for me for my 5150 body. Well, there you go. Let's do that.
Good to see Mully in here. Good morning, Mully.
You're very welcome.
Hey, I want to take a minute real quick because my buddy Logan is in the chat, and Logan has been pretty pivotal in the research that I do into Ed's guitars and the dates for neck swaps and stuff. And I think his father already told him this, but Logan's father came to me and said that he wanted to do something special for Logan's birthday and get him a guitar from me. And that guitar is going to be one of these, which David actually owns one of only 2 that I've ever done in this.
It's right there.
Yep. Beautiful instrument. I'm so glad with how David's came out, and I'm hoping to do some of these and even build them with actual Japanese sen ash, because I have a potential lead on some of this stuff. So if I can get it, that's what I'm going to build it out of. If not, we're going to do it out of ash. But I just wanted to shout Logan out since he's here. Happy birthday, buddy. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being part of the community. And I'm eager to get working on this thing for you as soon as I get the money.
I want one of those so bad. And then I'm just going to say it's a great alternative to the real great with capital G-R and E-A-T, because I was hanging out on Pete Thorne's live stream last Sunday, and they were talking about he's got a legit Ibanez Destroyer, and those things are ridiculous in value now. Ridiculous. Like 5 figures for an Ibanez Destroyer. Like,
Yep.
I think there was one Reverb saying it's at $15,000. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Yep.
there's one real one. It's a 75 that's on Reverb right now. It's over 10. It's over $10,000 for a Japanese Ibanez Destroyer.
Who
Yeah.
would have known?
It's crazy.
I don't even want to tell you what I paid for mine only 3.5 years ago.
Well, when you started making mine, there were real ones up there for like $3,500.
I paid
And that
a lot
was
less
what
than
he
that.
was saying. He feels partially responsible for that resurgence because when he got his, everybody went kind of crazy. And yeah,
absolutely. And
I'll take
I
a
will
clone.
say
Thank you.
what I do love about the one that Donnie made for me is he wasn't afraid to put whatever parts I asked for on it. Like I wanted a different bridge. I wanted a different ABR. I didn't want the ones that were on the original Ibanez. I wanted Gibson ones. And he did the work for me. So mine is a conglomeration of an Ibanez Destroyer and a Gibson Explorer.
Right.
And it has the pickups that I wanted, and it has the tuning pegs that I wanted. Now, I was lucky enough, and Donnie was in a good enough mood that he said, okay, I haven't done this before. As long as you're patient with me, I will do this for you, but I don't do this. And until now, I really haven't spoken about that guitar because I don't want Donnie to have to get calls from people, hey, can you build me a whole one? And then him have to say no, because he doesn't do it. He'll build you the carcass. He'll do the body and neck, put it together for you. You paint it, you put it together. That's what he'll do. And it's a lot of money because it's a lot of work. So don't expect it to be $800. It's not. It's a lot of money.
It's top shelf stuff. You got to pay for top shelf stuff. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And no, it's not Carina. It's ash. He's gonna make it out of ash unless he can find Japanese sen, or unless you want to pay $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 to have him find Carina wood and make one out of Carina. But that's not going to happen. It's expensive. The guitar is going to be super duper expensive.
Yeah, and on the note of me not doing that typically, I am, if I find the sen and I do the batch, I want to do about 10, and I'm going to sub out the stuff that I was nervous about doing. I have a guy who I've recently done some work for, a great player. He has got, oh my God, the stories this guy has. He grew up right around the corner from Michael Anthony, and he hung out at Dr. Music where Ed bought his Shark and played that guitar before Ed bought it. He's got stories for days. And he happens to be a professional car finisher. And I said, hey, man, I'm thinking about doing these guitars. Do you think you could paint them? And we've worked together on that. Point being, if I get that sen and I do this batch, I'm going to, on my own time, I'm going to build them all out. I'm going to sub them out to be painted. They're going to be all done in a line, all of them. And then I'm going to go find you guys to buy them. So let me put it this way. If you want one, you got to wait until I'm producing them, and then we'll kind of figure it out then. But you're not going to make an order and wait because it's going to take too long. I don't want to be sitting on your money. That's kind of why I don't like taking on full builds, because it's hard for me to finish them and build them out because I have to do so many other things.
Sure.
But that's in the pipeline. That was an announcement and a shout out to my buddy Logan.
Right. Billy Baloney says Carina isn't that rare. It's not the fact that it's rare. It's expensive. The wood is expensive. So, it's going to be a more expensive guitar. It's not about being rare. That's basically it. Also, want to say hello to the Chad. He's in the chat. And yes, we are talking Floyd Rose Van Halen.
Yes, you tuned in to the right episode this week, Chad.
Yeah. So, you're right on the money here.
This week.
And by the way, you definitely need to get one of these 5150 necks for your 5150. It needs to be done. It's just ridiculous. If you want your 5150, the guitar, to feel like one of your Music Man guitars and have the correct headstock, it needs to be done, buddy. So I'm expecting a phone call from you soon.
Fortunately for me, Dave, the only reason I haven't pulled the trigger on one of these guitars is because I still haven't decided Frankie or 5150. Frankie, 5150. And then if, I lean more towards the Frankie, but like, as we were discussing earlier, depending on which version you do, you may end up with kind of a piece of crap guitar in a sense because it is so Swiss cheesed but that's part of the awesomeness. So it's like, I just don't know. And then there's now other offerings of other bodies, and you're like, well, yeah, I never even thought about getting one of those because everybody's got this.
Well, Ben, I think you're more of a 78 guy, black and white with the CBS headstock. I think that's more your speed.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like the earliest iteration, as soon as he went red, whatever that is, because I do love the iconic 3 colors, but as early as possible, so it's not as beat to crap as
Let me show you something on that note, because I actually
Donnie's going to show us that guitar.
Yeah, my personal Frankenstrat replica. I don't have strings on it at the moment because I was working on it, but is a 79, the first show it was ever played at when it was sprayed red. It's got the original CBS neck still on it. It's got the 2 single coils in it, and the way the electronics are mounted. If you're crazy like me, you'll mount the strap by piercing rope with a Les Paul jack plate like he did. And it's got 5 reflectors. The red ones are there, but it's got 2 different. It's got a mirror and a big old amber circular reflector there.
Yep.
And at this time, a lot of people don't know this, and since I have it out, I might mention it. I might as well mention it. The trim on the guitar at this time was still a 6-point, Strat style trim, but it was not the original 61 Strat trim that was on there. He had actually changed it to a cast CBS era Strat trim. And that's a recent discovery, but weird of him to do that because those are not highly regarded.
And it's still somehow relic, because Eddie just really didn't give a rat's ass about finish on the guitar.
Well, yeah. So the reason why it's got a bunch of wear under the red, and at this point, is because he sanded the crap out of it before he painted it. Now, why did he do that? Maybe because he was prepping it and he was a little heavy-handed, or maybe he was in the middle of just sanding it off because he was tired of Grover copying his stripes at the time and he wanted to just start over.
Right.
And something kind of got in his head. No, don't just tape it back up and spray it again. We don't really know, but the reason why it's all beat up under the red is because he sanded it. He took sand out of that thing.
I was wondering because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, that looks kind of rough for the first show out. Like, how long were they rehearsing before this show, But wow, that's probably the guitar right there, Dave. Pretty much.
Now, Mike is himself. I didn't forget about your question. Chris Locke, Mike is himself wants to see your gem replica.
It's a work in process. It's like just thrown together.
Well, we won't hold you responsible for anything that's not exact yet.
Hell, the pickups aren't even mounted yet. They're just in it because I have to deepen the middle pickup cavity before I can do anything here. And I've been so damn busy building guitars for you guys that I haven't had a chance to mess with my own stuff.
Now, is that a 555 neck?
No, it isn't. It's believe it or not, it's a Chinese-made neck.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and I bought it on hey, it's $89. Let's see what it's like. And believe it or not, it's really decent.
Okay.
I mean, I did a fret job on it.
You were lucky on that one. You were one of the lucky ones that got a good neck.
That's the thing. If you do a good fret job on it, it's going to be a good neck. That's really the most important part is the fret job.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did a fret job on it, and it's good now. It was actually decent before I did anything to it, surprisingly, but no, it's good now. The other thing I had to do was I had to contour the neck because they didn't get it even remotely right.
Right.
And it was thick. It was like baseball bat thick. Now it's pretty close to what an Ibanez should be. But
well,
it's a work in process.
Who did the swirl?
I don't know. I bought it off Reverb, some guy in Illinois.
Okay. Nice swirl. Beautiful.
Yeah.
We got J708 in the chat. See? All you have to do is pull an Ibanez down off the wall and Jay shows up. It's amazing how.
By the way, for those of you who know Jay's saga with buying guitars and not having good luck, he just bought a guitar that is stunning and it's gorgeous. And it's a used Ibanez, but it's in immaculate shape.
Nice.
And I'm sure Jay will show it on his show Friday night. So
Awesome.
we'll let him save all that for his show.
Awesome.
But my God, is his
Congrats.
guitar beautiful.
Awesome. Oh, what was?
Yeah.
Had a
So all right.
question,
So
and then I forgot.
So what else do we have in store that you want to show us, guys? Donnie, I know that you kind of showed us in the first one, but the Strat on the back wall with the Dane Electro neck.
Yeah.
Now, are you guys offering that neck, or was that a one-off that you're doing, or is that something that you'll do in the future? What? We're talking Van Halen replicas now. That's basically what this is about. Yes, you have the 5150 all figured out. So that's done. We have that in the bank. Anyone who wants to buy
You can add that to the cart.
anyone who wants to buy a body and neck for their 5150 build now has exactly the correct stuff. What else do we have that you may be able to talk about that may come up in the future for all of us Van Halen nerds and retards that want all of his guitars?
Well, so on the note of that Strat, you might recall that when Rob was hanging out here, he was kind of thinking, I got to have a guitar like that. Well, right after last show when we were on, he messaged me, and sure enough, he he said, let's get to working on one of those.
I knew he would.
So here is Rob's neck.
Nice.
It's a Dan Electro. A while back, I did a bunch of research and development on Dan Electros. I bought an original one for my Rude and modified it. And, we got the 5-degree angled headstock. It's an angle, but not much, and that's how they were. This particular one. Now, what's interesting about Dan Electros is these are all identical necks, and they just had a big old paddle headstock, and they shaped them differently depending on where they were going. So this is the Coke bottle style that you saw Eddie had and was on that guitar. And, we're making the aluminum nuts, and they're screwed into the fretboard. That's how they attach them.
Right. That's how they were attached. Now, before we go any further, would you mind if I called Rob and see if he wants to talk to us?
Sure.
Hang on, guys. Let me see if I can get him on. It's a little late. He may be sleeping. He may not be.
Well, you're doing that, Dave. I have a question for Don.
Sure.
I have, just slightly off topic, but what the hell? I always wonder this, and I figured you're the guy talking. I have a Music Man Access Super Sport made in the USA. How close would this neck have been to the Ernie Ball Music Man that Eddie played, aka the Kramer profiled neck? Because I often wonder, because I really love this neck, and I wonder how close it would be.
Right. So my understanding is that they were only using that. Now, I'm not a big Music Man historian like I am with everybody stuff, but my understanding is that was pretty exclusive to Ed. That the neck hunt, the carve.
Right.
As far as like the headstock shape and the way the heel is cut and the dots, I think most of that is standard Ernie Ball. I think the real custom thing they did for Ed, it's got to have a Floyd, of course.
Yeah.
And it's the contour on the back. That is probably exclusive to the EVH.
Because it is asymmetrical, but I wonder, because that was their thing. They've always marketed the asymmetrical neck throughout, even after Ed left the company. But I wonder by this point in time how, I can't remember what year this is, about 10 years old, I think. And I just wonder how close it is, because why bother changing it? But on the other hand, maybe they did because it's called the Access at that point.
Right.
Blah, blah,
No,
blah.
that could be. Like I said, I'm not a big Music Man historian. I pretty much check out of Ed's guitars after the 5150. Not because I have anything against them. They're wonderful instruments, and I love to own any of them that I don't already own. It's just that I think personally that Ed's guitars are so much more interesting.
Sure.
From the 5150 back.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yep.
He was more involved in them at that time.
Once they became production line guitars, I kind of lost interest.
Yeah.
Because anyone can get them.
I agree.
You know, it's the exclusivity of them became like, well,
Mhm.
all right, anyone could buy one of those if you have the money to do so.
For sure.
But the Kramers and the Frankie and whatever the
And all
other,
those ones in between that I didn't know
all of
about
the
until I
one-offs,
discovered all you guys through
all the
YouTube.
one-offs that have to be made by builders to be made for you, or if you're have balls big enough to build them yourself, which is great if you do. Those are what's interesting because those are the ones that people can't readily get.
Or don't even know about sometimes.
Right.
The details
That's what
are-
makes them cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Then till some random photo, like somebody will share, through social media, one of those photos of Ed with a bunch of guitars, and I'm like, what? Because honestly, 5 years ago, I thought there's the Frankie and then the 5150 and maybe a backup for the 5150, and that's all I thought there was as a casual fan. And then all of a sudden, I was like,
Hundreds of
oh,
those guitars. There were literally hundreds of those guitars made. Now, if you read Eruption, the book Eruption, the way it's told is that there's only a couple of them, and the rest of them are all fakes. That's not the case.
no.
There were hundreds of them made. Now, whether or not Eddie actually played them or used them, that's speculation. That's the different story. There was about 13 or 14 that was on the road with him that were all backups. The rest of them were, all right, I'm giving this guitar to this guy. I'm giving this guitar to this guy. Make me a body, make me a neck, slap it together. I'm going to send it to this place. There was talk of them making a Van Halen model at Kramer, a striped model. And
Sure.
a couple of prototypes were made for that. It never came to fruition. Never came to fruition. And those guitars were either given away by Eddie or some lucky factory guys got them. They never were put out for production. And they looked similar to the 5150, but not quite. And they all had angled, pointy headstocks. All of them. None of them had this headstock. None of them had this headstock. They were all the pointy production line angled headstock with the larger Kramer Beretta body, not this body. It was the larger guitar. It did have a maple neck. It did have an angled pickup and a Floyd Rose. But that was the guitar. It never happened, and that's it. And if you ask anyone that had anything to do with it, they never made one. But they were made.
Yeah, I don't think those guys remember a whole lot either, because it was a whirlwind for them, first of all, and it was the 80s. It was excess. They didn't think about it that much at the time. They were just kind of cobbling this stuff together to get it out the door for Ed because Ed wanted it now.
Yeah, and what people don't realize is Eddie was a part owner of Kramer. He actually he was a silent partner. He owned it, and whatever he wanted, they just made him. They made it
Which
for
is
him.
why he didn't have a signature guitar, probably. He didn't need to. He was already getting
Yes.
big.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so he got what he wanted.
On the note of, some other stuff we're looking at outside the realm of the Frankenstrat, the 5150, the mainstays, we're always looking at and experimenting with weirdo guitars that are associated with Eddie and maybe stuff that wasn't associated with him, just stuff that we're interested in and we want to reverse engineer. And it's not even just bodies and necks. We're experimenting with whether we sub it out or make it ourselves. We're experimenting with bridges, if they're materials we can make them out of. For example, this is a Charvel keyhole style bridge that you will be familiar with from the early Charvel guitars and was on the Frankenstrat for a very brief time. All brass construction, the block, the plate, the saddles, the screws. And, this was a case of me getting a real set of saddles. You can see some on my Megazone. These saddles came from Jim Shine, who worked at Charvel. He just had them listed, and I wanted to reverse engineer them, so I snagged them. And, I'm building this Megazone. The original has them, so that's what I did. But yeah, I mean, anytime we get something through the shop that's of interest to us to reverse engineer, we do it. And we have a huge backlog of stuff we've kind of torn apart and are tinkering with, but haven't really been able to produce or had no one's messaged us to produce it yet. This neck that I brought out to talk about Bird's Eye is an example. The Frankenstrat, it had 11 necks on it in its life. And
I was going to ask how many necks because that's been burning in the back of my brain for the last 12 minutes.
So 11 necks, and I think this was the third neck that was on it. The first was a 61 Strat neck, because the guitar that preceded the Frankenstrat was a 61 Strat. And when he built the Frankenstrat, it was really a body transplant. He wasn't building that guitar from the ground up. He kind of just took the body and then moved everything from a 61 Strat over to it. So that was the first one. We think it probably was re-radius to about 10-inch radius. And the reason we think that is because Wayne Charvel almost certainly owned that guitar as a personal instrument before Ed. It's got his DNA all over it. The re-radius. And the reason we suspect that is because if you hear some of the bends Ed was doing in the club days, there's no way you're doing those bends on a 7.25-inch fretboard.
Oh, no, unless you have action that's 10 miles off the fretboard.
Yeah. Exactly.
And, the speculation that Eddie played with high action because he said he did, that was a lie. Eddie played with as low action as you possibly can get. And that's just, without it buzzing. That's the way he played. He played light strings, 9 through 48. 9 through 48 with a 15 as a G string, not a 16. And he played low action. He told people he played super high action on a fretboard that was as big as a nylon string classical guitar. Right. And yes, the fretboard was larger than a normal Stratocaster fretboard, but not like a classical guitar. None of them.
You mean wider?
Wider, yes.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify, and that's certainly the case of the Boogie Buddies necks like this one. Now, like I was saying, this was the third neck.
Oh, hang on, guys. I got Rob Johnson. You're live on the air. Hang on. Let me get you on speaker. There you go.
Hey, everybody. What's going on? Dave,
hey, Rob.
Ben,
Hey.
Donnie, and Chris. How you guys doing?
We're all doing good. We were just talking about some of the guitars necks that they're building for you and bodies and such.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't answer your call. I actually was driving home from work. I'm actually still in the car right now. I'm driving home. I got stuck a little bit later. I was talking to Chris earlier today, and I was going to try to catch the show because I thought I was working until 8 o'clock, but I got stuck doing some Narcan training for my my security team. So I was just putting gas in my car and just had to take a loan out for that. So
yeah, we all do.
No more guitars for a while because I got to put gas in my car. But anyways.
So should I tell them to put those necks and bodies on the shelf?
They're all paid for.
Oh, okay, there you go. So. But yeah, we were talking about you, so I wanted to get you. I wanted to get you on. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So thanks for the call, Rob. I was going to ask you if you wanted to come on, but if you're not home yet, we're only going to be on for another 10, 15 minutes.
Shut up.
Hey, you're live.
Yeah.
Yes, the production level of the show.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Nothing. I'm just I'm glad that you called. We're enjoying that your stuff is getting built. I showed off. Well, you'll see the show when you look at it. But you're not home, so you can't come on. We'll be done by the time you get home. So
I just pulled in, but no, keep me on the phone. We can chat.
Okay. Well, I'm going to keep you here. I'm not going to hold you up here. So Donnie, what were you saying?
Well, I'm going to back up a step since we got Rob, and I'm building him this Dan Electro neck. Some details on this thing. I mentioned the angled headstock. If you look at these Dano necks, they're missing a dot marker. Not that they're missing it. It wasn't standardized, but the dots don't go all the way up to the end of the neck. And they're smaller. They're 3/16. They're not a 1/4 inch. They're nice bright white plastic. We've got the spacing of the 12 frets, just the 12 fret marker just right. Now, what's interesting about these is the overall thickness of this neck at the heel is not Fender spec. 1-inch Fender spec. It's actually, I don't know if I can demonstrate this anyway. It's awkward, like Chris was saying. This neck is thinner, and you can see there's like, it doesn't actually like transition down into the carve at all. It's pretty much straight through.
It's flat. Yeah.
Yeah. And the heel is much longer because that's just how their bodies were. The side dots are aluminum. They're not plastic. They're not
Really?
pearl. Yeah, they're aluminum.
Huh.
They use a lot of aluminum. The nut is aluminum, like I was talking about. And the side dots only go up to the 12th fret, and the 12th fret's one dot. It's not two. Just weird, you know.
Well, you know, Donnie, some of us don't really venture north of the 12th fret on too many occasions. I'm just saying.
You also have to realize that those guitars were $100.
Yeah.
Right.
They were Season Roebuck guitars.
Yeah.
You know, and they were $100. They were the quality was very, you know, very. I mean, they were well-made guitars, but they were cheap guitars.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things that's interesting that they skimped on, and this is common of the 50s and 60s parlor and catalog guitars, it doesn't have an adjustable truss rod. It has two pieces of steel. That's it. And if it warps, you're out of luck. And you know, if you want one from us, we'll build it with a truss rod. Obviously, we want your guitar to play. But Rob is like me, and he's nuts, and he wants that steel bar, solid steel bar. But yeah, all the little quirks.
I mean, the root neck that you did for me, Donnie, was funny because when it came in, I mean, it was absolutely amazing. It's one of the most smoothest, best playing necks I've ever had in my life. Seriously, I mean, I can't wait to see this 250/150 neck that I'm going to throw on that body of mine that Chris did. But actually, Chris did. Chris built it, and the other Chris painted it. But I'll tell you, it was funny because when I brought the body up to with the neck when it came in to my guitar tech, I put everything together, and if it works, great. If I can do some minor shims, great. If I still can't figure it out, I bring it up to my tech up in Keene, New Hampshire. And Mike Hickey, also everybody knows who Mike Hickey is. He works up there. Famous guy, played in some rock bands, roadied for a whole bunch of people. We're all friends with Mike on Instagram and everything. There's a guitar tech up there that sets everything up, and he goes, there's no truss rod in this thing. I'm like, yeah, it's like a real Dano neck. And he goes, that is fucking cool as hell. So cool because obviously, like Donnie said a minute ago, it's like I'm one of those guys who just wants everything exact. I mean, of course, I want it to play. I mean, so obviously, if something doesn't play, I'm gonna go to the right lengths to make it play because I am a player. But at the same time, I want everything to be as close to the original as possible. And he did a couple of tweaks. And you got this thing perfect. I mean, and the action on that neck is so low, and it just plays amazing. It doesn't buzz. It's just one of those special, crazy necks. And Dave and I have had this conversation many times over the years. You just pick up some of those guitars. I mean, you have a whole bunch of guitars, and they all play great. But every once in a while, you pick one up, and it just has that magic to it. You just hit that chord acoustically on an electric guitar, and it just rings like, whoa, that just feels special. And that neck is one of them. And the B neck that Donnie did for me is another one that it's just incredible. So you dialed that in exact, but seriously.
Yeah, and Donnie and Chris both have got this under control. It's
100%.
It's uncanny because most big companies, they get you kind of there, but you need fretwork. Usually, when I get a neck that's not from these guys, it needs some sort of fretwork. It needs some sort of something. But when you buy a neck from these guys, you pay for a finished product.
Mm-hmm.
It's finished. It's finished. All you have to do is put it on your guitar and play. It's ridiculous. It's
Donnie and Chris's necks. You're right, Dave. There's something special. There's no fret ends. There's no adjustment. There's nothing. I mean, yeah, you may have to throw a shim on it, but depending what.
And also depends on the humidity and the time of season. You're going to get some fret sprouting sometimes. I don't care who makes it. The weather has everything to do with that. That's not the builder. That's the weather. you know. And when you have a neck that is unfinished and you have steel that's going into wood, the wood is either going to contract or expand. It's
Right.
going to happen no matter what. You can't blame the builder for that unless it left the builder that way. But if
Right.
it left the builder with nice, smooth fret ends, it's not their fault. It's the weather.
Right.
So that work has to get done eventually. Or you can wait till the springtime when you have humidity and the wood will expand again and the fret edges will go away.
Yep. That's a great point.
That's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah. On the note of weather, Chris and I, when we started doing the 5150 necks and the demand was absolutely enormous, what we started to do is I was sending Chris necks that were, and I still am, necks in batches of 10, 15, 20 that are unfretted but sanded. And the first batch he got, he was fitting these things and he was like, dude, these aren't fitting the way that we normally get them to fit. And I know that they left my shop fitting that way because I was fitting them to a body that was to our spec. So, you know, we look into it and it turns out I'm shipping him a guitar from Southwest Florida that humidity was probably really high at that time. He's
80%.
Easily. He's receiving it in Ohio and 10% humidity in the dead of winter, and it's shrinking enough to not fit right, and that's where you get your fret spout and stuff.
And that's what I mean by it doesn't know whether it wants to be a guitar yet, because it is getting contorted from a heavily humidified area to an area that has very little humidity. And it's going, oh, what are you doing to me? Oh, my God, my spine. It's like it's moving, you know. And
So,
unfortunately, that happens.
Keith made a comment, weather during shipping. See, we ship all of our necks in a, what do you want to call them? Basically a melted sealed bag, so it's protected from the elements. And it was funny because I would pull a neck out, I would measure it, it would be to spec, and then I'd let it sit, and it would shrink a couple days later. It's like, really? So, yeah, we went through all sorts of hell until basically it came to the point where everything's climate controlled now. So it's consistent.
Yeah, we both have.
You know what's really interesting too is before Donnie came along and teamed up with you, Chris, Dave and I both have had. This is a compliment to Donnie and certainly a compliment to you as well, Chris. But have purchased Locke products now for, oh gosh, Dave, what, at least 5 years?
Oh yeah,
it's at least 5 years from purchasing, you know, Locke bodies and necks, you know, before Donnie even came around and teamed up with you. I mean, Donnie was kind of doing his own thing for a little while. You know, the necks and the bodies were absolutely outstanding before. And what I find really interesting is you know, and it's kind of interesting because I took tomorrow off. I took the day off and I'm actually driving out to Craig up to CHS Guitars to pick up my mini Les Paul that Donnie built for me. It's all clear coated. It's ready for pickup, and I'm dropping a couple of other things off. When you pick up one of Donnie's necks, it feels exactly the same as some of the necks that I got from Chris, like my Star guitar, my Charvel Star guitar. I think I had the first one that you ever did, Chris. I think it was like 3-4 years ago. I said, hey, I want you to do a Star guitar for me. And you did the body and the neck. And actually, I had you ship it to NSDALL's house. Remember that, Dave? And,
yeah,
and it
I remember that.
came when I was out visiting you, and you and I unboxed it. And we were both like, wow, this neck is just, it's the Dano Coke bottle neck, you know, whatever. I think it did have a truss rod, but because that's how Chris was doing them then. But
right.
We were just like, wow, this is insane. And that guitar still is just absolutely incredible.
Right.
And what's interesting is when you look at what Donnie's brought to the equation now, and you feel, you know, his product, it feels so similar, but everything is almost even dialed in more so now because the two of you guys team up to be just an incredible group. I mean, You guys are just insane.
So I have to stop you right there real quick. Daniel Van der Linden brings up a great point, and I today just found this out, and I'm going to give you a bit of information that Donnie and Chris may or may not know about. So Donnie says, that's what happened to my tuner holes on my first 5150 neck. Now, the holes on these necks are drilled to 10 millimeters. And if you're putting shallower tuners on your guitar, they will fit. They will fit in those holes. But if you're putting the Gatto tuners, which are on the 5150 guitar, they will not fit in those holes because the Gatto tuners are slightly larger than 10 millimeters. And I just found that out today. Now, I used to have to re-ream all of my tuner holes to be larger than 10 millimeters after I would get my necks for the Gatto tuners, thinking, Jesus Christ, whoever makes my necks, they're not making the tuner holes big enough. Well, let's realize that maybe nobody knows that the Gatto tuners are larger than 10 millimeters. Slightly, but they are. So you're not going to fit Gatto tuners in a 10 millimeter hole. It has to be reamed out.
That's the American part versus the Japanese part. It's just slightly different. Yeah.
Yeah. So when Rob was talking a bit about how some of Chris's older stuff still holds up today, and part of our philosophy, and we touched on this earlier, is that, you know, if we get something that's a great product, we don't stop. We keep looking back at it and trying to find little things we can improve on. And when we see something that, yeah, I mean, we can prove that this is how it should be, but we didn't have that before because it wasn't something that could be proven, you know, we do that. And that's why we come up with these revisions. The reason I brought this guitar out is because this is an Unchained Circles body that Chris made in 2015. I think it's serial like 140 or 150 or something on this body. So it's a pretty early one. And it's an amazing body. It still holds up great. We have tweaked it substantially since then. And, you know, I've worked with Chris recently, in fact, on these boogie bodies to dial these in. But I love this thing. It's great. And, you know, I'm going to keep it the way it is. I put one of my necks on it because I didn't order one from Chris at the time. I just, you know, I don't even know that maybe he did have them, but I put my own neck on it, which is funny because now it is our Frankenstrat neck. You know, this body I got from Chris all this time ago to put my own neck on. Now I'm the one working with Chris on these. But yeah, you know, that's, you know, that constant improvement. And, you know, on the Dano neck, same thing. Chris had a great product before, and, you know, we kind of tweaked it together to bring it in. And we're never above saying we not screwed up, but we didn't have it quite 100%, because, you know, coming up to the further we get along, the more information comes out and the more we can know what was right.
Sure.
You know, so we couldn't know what was right before, so we did our best. But, you know, the more that comes out, we learn more, and we will go back and change it.
Was that guitar one of the 2-inch bodied guitars?
Yeah, let me get you on here so you can show it off. By the way, we're going to have a special guest on here for a moment. I know we don't have that much longer to go, but we're going to have a special guest come on here.
Yeah, I always forget about that one, and I love that. It's just awesome.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
all right,
Yeah,
that one on the list too.
Someone asked if it's 2 inches thick. This one is not, because that's just how I ordered it. I didn't ask Chris to do it.
Okay, but was the original a 2-inch body?
Yes, it was.
Okay,
and that's an FRT2 on that guitar, correct?
3. The 2 is it's like string through. It's really weird. Actually, Jerry owned this trim, and it was a 3, but he modified the saddles to look like a 1. So they've got, I don't know if you can even see that, but they've got the slot milled into them. That was kind of Jerry's way of hacking it to make it look, and I love it. It's a great trim. I don't know that this is even U.S. I think it's a Japanese, you know, like made at the Fernandez plant. But it fits the part. It looks right, you know.
It looks cool. That's probably
I really like that.
Other than it not being a 2-inch body, that looks like the closest one I've ever seen.
Oh, thank you.
I think I body to see if I'd like it or not.
It's different for sure. My root is 2-inch thick, but I think Jerry is painting one for Rob right now, right?
Yes, he's doing it in the royal blue.
Oh yeah,
He seems to
Yeah,
think
that one right there.
and not black. There are two camps. There are camps that say it's a black and white guitar, and there are camps that say it is like a sparkly metal, not metal flake, but a shiny
car paint.
type car paint blue
Yeah.
with white stripes and circles.
Hmm.
I go back and forth on that because in some photos it looks black and white, and Eddie said that it was a black and white guitar. But there are some photos that are not under the lights of the stage that the guitar looks blue. So some days I think it's a blue guitar, some days I think it's a black guitar. My beautiful wife says the Bumblebee is an EVH guitar, right? And of course, Chris says yes, it is. Jerry Leica says it's not shiny at all; it's just blue. And Jerry thinks that it's American flag blue. So, I trust his eyes, and he's one of the reasons when I think it's blue, the reason why I think it's blue, because Jerry says so. And I believe 100% of what he says, but then there are photos where it looks black to me. So I go back and forth on that.
Yeah,
And
me
then the
too.
guitar was repainted anyway, so we can't tell, right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I've gone back and forth a lot too, and I am finally convinced. I wasn't convinced it was even 2 inches thick, which is why I got mine 1 3/4. Now, mind you, this was 7 years ago when I got it, but I wasn't even convinced it was 2 inches thick because I would look at the photos and it's kind of hard to tell. But it's obviously 2 inches thick, and now I'm coming around to being pretty well convinced that it was a dark midnight blue. And I've even heard a story that Rudy went to go get the paint, and he just couldn't.
Right.
See that it was not black.
And I'll tell you I'll finish the story. He paints it blue and gives it to Eddie. And Eddie's like, what the fuck is this? Why do I have a blue guitar? That's what is saying. That's what's being said. That was said.
Yeah.
So, why did you paint me a blue guitar? And therefore it was blue because he just didn't get black. It was just blue. So, who knows?
The more you know.
Our special guest should be here in any second, and it'll be fun. I think you all will enjoy our special guest. What else you got there?
Yeah, I almost forgot to talk about this one. And when you mentioned special guest, the reason I wanted to bring it out is because actually this is a surprise for a viewer in the chat. Dimitri, otherwise known as Jimmy, we've been doing a bunch of these short scale boogie bodies guitars that we had talked about earlier. And this is one that we just did out of maple, just a custom thing for him. But I just pulled this off the CNC today, and it's got quirks like this route goes. This route goes all the way through to the trim cavity. Yeah, and some of Ed's boogie bodies guitars did, and other ones didn't. But this particular one, we've done it that way, and we've done several of these, and Ed had one that was mahogany with an ebony neck, so we can do that one all day or other woods. But this is one that I just did for Dimitri today, so hopefully he sees it and likes it.
Real quick, everyone, Rob Johnson is here. Rob, can I ask you, instead of having the mood lighting, can you turn some lights on so we can actually see you?
I might have one more.
Hey, you guys, much better.
Yeah.
Much better.
And I have
Rob Johnson, everybody.
And I have something here.
Beautiful.
Oh, look at that.
This was one of Chris's. This was the first one Chris Locke ever did. And hello, everybody. What's up, Ben?
Let me.
How you doing, Rob?
Rob.
Show it again.
Hey, Ben, did you get that Floyd Rose put on that acoustic guitar yet, or what?
I'm working on it.
Okay. All right. Well, Dave, thanks for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure to be on Guitar Town Hall, and I saw the last episode, and I watched it, and it was great to be in the chat, and it's an honor to be on the show anyways, but especially with Dave and Ben, and certainly Chris and Donnie. You guys are freaking amazing. You guys have this shit dialed in better Well, I mean, I'll be politically correct. You guys have this stuff dialed in really, really good. So keep up the good work. But this is certainly not the first guitar that I've Locke guitar that I've ever had, but it is definitely one to talk about. This is a Locke body, and I did the paint job myself, and it was white for a while because I decided I wanted to have it kind of go through the motions of what Ed's was when he first got his. And we all know, Ed's was white and actually had a Strat style neck on it because it's a Charvel Star guitar back in the '79 tour, I think it was. And then in 1980 it was white. And then sometime early in '80, I think, and Donnie can chime in on this one, did the paint job. But this is a Chris Locke body and Chris Locke neck, Dan Electro style neck, and it's just amazing, and it plays incredible.
With the correct striping on the back.
Yeah.
Or to our knowledge, it's correct.
Yeah, I mean, as far as we can tell through the Zlauser books, which I guess is another Zlaus book coming out here pretty soon, I guess. Hopefully we get more information on that. But yeah,
Hey, Rob, sorry to interrupt. Was another guitar that Charvel had built for Eddie originally? Like, because that body style, like I don't know what it is. What was the lineage of that?
It was a Charvel because in '79 it had a Strat style headstock on it.
Right.
It was a Charvel made by a Charvel Star guitar, and it was white, and it didn't have a Floyd on it. It had a V trem on it.
Right. Ed had a couple of these. He actually had a pink one. There's a picture of Ed outside a Guitar Center with a pink one, or like a red kind of pinkish star.
It's like a weird pinky burst.
Yeah. So I don't know if Ed bought this as a star or if Charvel made it for him. But we're thinking it was, painted white, and then at some point he striped it like this with this kind of a bones. I call it the Pirates and Bones motif, is what I always call it. I have a DiMarzio Super Distortion, and this is actually a very rare. If you guys can see, the whammy bar reaches from frickin' Florida to Maine. That's how long it is. It's a
FRP4
V, which means vertical, which means it's the first version FRT Floyd Rose with the fine tuners that did not slant back. They went straight up, and Ed didn't like it because his palm hit, because Ed would always play with his palm resting on the bridge. So it's a very rare Floyd Rose. Took me a long time to find. It's got a big block in the back. So it's kind of a half-size block. But anyways, I did the paint job myself, and this is one of those magical guitars that Chris put together, built, and it's amazing. It plays great, and the neck is amazing.
I remember when that neck came here. It was so good. The fretwork was amazing. It just felt real deal. It didn't feel like a Dan Electro neck. It felt like a real, substantial, great neck. And I was like, man, at that point I wanted to have one made for me, but I had an EVH version of that guitar, and I didn't like it. I just didn't like the way it sat on me. So I was like, I don't need weird shape. But man, is that guitar great?
It is.
The guitar is.
And the Van Halen tribute band, Everybody Wants Some, with the lead guitarist Joe Girard, who is a friend of ours, or a friend of mine, definitely, wanted to play this guitar, and I'm going to find a picture of him playing it live back a couple of months ago in Springfield, Massachusetts, when they played with Van Hagar. And here he is actually playing Chris Locke's, sorry for the picture. Here is Joe Girard, all dressed up like Eddie, playing this guitar live. And he definitely did it justice. And I think he played Light Up the Sky in Panama with it. So, yeah, definitely a real cool guitar. So, whatever.
Keith Campbell wants to see the back of that neck, Rob.
Okay. Whatever Donnie has brought to the equation with Chris has been completely consistent with what Chris has been doing, and brought it to another level. But yeah, this is a great guitar. I love this. I love this. It's my favorite.
On that neck, when you pulled that up and started showing it off, I saw that FRT4 instantly, and my eyes lit up, and I'm like, that's a great trim.
So here's actually a good thing. So on the real Star did not have an FRT4, it had an FRT3. It didn't have fine tuners.
Probably a 1 actually.
It might even have been a 1 exactly.
Yeah.
But the reason I had this bridge kicking around, and I was like, I have an actual FRT 1 or 2 on my B. By the way, Nick Amendolora, it will be reaching out to you, Chris, for a B body because he's painting a B body for me. So I don't know if he's already reached out to you.
Already taken care of, Rob. We got you fixed.
Anyways, the real Star did not have an FRT4 on it, but I figured I had this bridge kicking around, and I'm like, you know what? This is a great guitar to put it on because it's not quite as long as an FRT5. So it looks the part a little bit more, and it has fine tuners, and it was kind of in that mid. So it's not totally accurate because that's not what Ed had on his, but I thought it was a great guitar to put it on.
But Ed could have put one on it at one time, Rob. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
Like you say, it's in that spirit.
Exactly.
You know as well as anybody, like, if I said, hey, Rob, I took the liberty to do this, it's kind of in the spirit of Eddie, and you'd be like, yes, that is, or no, no, it isn't. No.
Yep.
You need this. And I'm like, yes, Rob, I do. And
exactly. I
love
just wanted to show this real quick because this is a great guitar. I still love it. It plays great. It's an honor to have one of Chris's first prototypes that he did of this model. And anybody out there watching, I'm sure Chris still has the template of this. But I think on the last show you guys did, I sent some pictures of my double neck, the yellow double neck Kramer that Chris did.
That's awesome.
He's knocking stuff out of the park, and it's just great to have Donnie on board with him because you guys are just tearing it up. Keep it up.
Yeah, it's funny. 2 things real quick on that. You bring up the Star and the revisions. I played and had one of Chris's other early Dan Electro necks for the Star because Dimitri sent me one to modify. You know that Dan Electro that has like the funky like spear looking tip.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. So he sent me one of Chris's Coke bottle necks and had me cut it down to the spear shape because that's what we think may have happened on one of those. But anyway, I had another one, and when I saw your Star, first I saw the FRT4, and then I saw that early pattern Chris neck. I'm like, man, that's cool.
Yeah.
And then also the double neck, we're working on doing a crazy double neck kit. You wouldn't believe in terms of accuracy. An actual aluminum 12-string Kramer neck that we're working on with.
All right, so the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, I want to say that I want to say we're working on it, but I wanted to.
That's what I want now.
I wasn't going to talk about it, but because Rob came in and brought it up, I'll say that we're at least looking into it. I don't know if it can ever come out. I just need to know that it can happen because I'm working with a machine shop to have them make the actual aluminum neck to spec. But we've done all the R&D, and I think we've nailed it. And that is why I bought this Pacer, is because it has a Rockinger on it. And I've already taken this whole thing apart, reverse engineered the Rockinger. And it's a 6-point Rockinger. It's not a 2-point Rockinger, just like
right. Yeah, it's got the 6 screws. Yeah. I've had 2 of them, and I wished I kept one. Scott Smith has my purple one that I wished I still had. I'm getting that back. But
they have a terrible reputation, and I can understand why. They were early technology for fine-tuning 2-point, somewhat locking trim. But it works fairly well. Like I'm satisfied with it. It's a cool guitar. I'm glad to have it.
Yeah.
But we're gonna try to make Rockinger trims, make aluminum Kramer necks, not just the 12-string one, but also the 6-string ones and some other aluminum Kramer necks that were made, and the 12-string bridge that was on that side of the guitar. So if that can happen, we're gonna go all out and do an absolutely like crazy 12 double neck Kramer kit.
Yeah.
That'd be
awesome.
awesome.
So
disclaimer, real quick. It's not available now.
It will not
it's
be
not available
time.
soon.
And it may not be available at all.
Correct.
It may not. It's in the talking stage.
You guys sound like Wolfgang talking about dripping into the vaults. It's not happening soon.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything at all, and I even told David before we got started I wasn't going to say anything at all. But the only reason I brought it up is because, you know, I can't help it when Rob talks about the star that he did with Chris's early stuff and the double neck that he did with Chris doing a wooden neck version of it. Was that a wooden neck that was painted like silver, Rob, on your double neck?
Hold on, I'll go grab it. That was actually a music craft neck that I had Scott make me. It was not on a real aluminum neck.
Right.
Hubbard painted it to look aluminum.
Gotcha.
It plays great, but it was not wasn't a real aluminum one. So what you guys will get from these two down the road will probably be, you know, will be even more so, you know. I mean, like I said, it looks the part. It you know, we put the little ferrules in the, you know, for the holes in there and all that, for the little rivets or whatever you want to call them. It came out great, and it looks great, and it plays great, and I love it. And I probably won't ever bother upgrading it because it's just not one of those guitars that I really play much.
It's unwieldy.
Rob, if you're going to show it, do it quickly because we're at the 2-hour mark.
Okay.
We're not going to stay on that much longer.
All right, hang on.
And while Rob's grabbing that guitar, I'm going to call BS on Rob. He will be getting one of those aluminum necks. We all know Rob. We all know Rob.
And when Rob comes back, I'm going to show him my 5150 again and rub it in his face a little bit. So you guys mind if I show that to him again?
Well, I have his here, and I was going to show him that too.
Yeah, but all right, you could show him that. But before you show him that, I need to show him a completed one.
Yeah, I'll do it. We'll let him get some FOMO first, and then I'll be like, all right, it's good. I got yours here.
And I'm just going to circle back really quick to those Dane Electro necks, Don. Like you were showing how they were so much thinner in the heel. So when you're grafting them onto a lot, it looks like a Charvel body or something, are you just using a series of like full plate neck shims under it to bring it up, or
an angle to shim it back? That makes a, you know, if you shimmed the whole thing up, you'd have to put a pretty thick shim in, but if you angle it back, it does a lot more.
Yeah, that's how I would shim it. I would just.
Well, I was curious, yeah, because I know there's a difference there, but I'm just like, I was kind of confused on it, and I appreciate it. That's awesome. Okay, so an angled shim, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I'm going to pick on Dave just for a second real quick because I've watched the dropping the guitar video a million times and just I'm so freaking happy. So
that's okay. That's okay. You can pick on me all you want because I'm about to really shove it up your ass.
I know. But everybody knows I love Dave. He's one of my best friends, and I mean everything. But I'm going to say this guitar is crazy good. It's got broken headstock. Whoops.
Yeah, that's funny.
That was freaking hilarious, Dave, and I'm just so glad the guitar is good because I can't tell you how many times I've dropped shit. My freaking cat knocked my Shark guitar over and it put a big dent in my Wolfgang, and that's how it turned into the tour relic. But real quick, I just want to say I love you, Dave. I'm so glad everything worked out, but that is one of those classic moments that we'll always remember. And not laugh at you, but laugh with you because it really was funny.
It was absolutely funny. That's why I put it on Facebook.
I know, and Dave's got a great sense of humor about that because I'm glad it turned out that way. But this is the Rude guitar. Jerry Leica painted it. Jerry, I'm sure you're watching. You and I chatted today. Jerry's going to do my circles for me. 2-inch thick body. This guitar is great. It's got an FRT 7 on it. It's one of the very few FRT 7s that does not have a logo. And Donnie, this you'll be drooling over this one. Big steel block. But anyways, here's the back, and it's totally exact. I cut the cavity cover myself. But this is Donnie's neck, and it is just insane, and it fits perfect. And I did not know that the Rude had a string retainer on it. I did not know when I messaged Donnie. I'm like, hey, am I seeing this right? Because Dimitri called me and it's like, hey, check this out.
Hey, I'm not alone then tonight on string retainers. Perfect.
Yeah, right. You can't tell, but this is actually a vintage prototype nut. And it's got a string retainer, which is incredibly close to the nut and angled. And that's why we didn't tell it had one. And I never knew until like a month ago when I messaged Donnie. But it's got Schaller double tabs on it on the back. because Donnie told me that's probably what Ed had on his because he was using those all the time. But I'm going to tell you guys, this snack is just insane.
What kind of pickups in it, Rob?
DiMarzio Super Distortion.
Thought so.
It's got the upside down jack plate because that's how Ed's was. I don't think it's that way now.
What I love about that guitar is the rattlesnake rattle just behind the pickup.
Yeah.
Yeah, what
really,
the hell?
really, really cool.
Something crazy was going
Kind
on.
of a rattlesnake looking rattle thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can tell, but the real one is like totally not finished, and you can almost see the grain through this guitar. It's
the dog hair grain of the mahogany.
Yeah,
it's a different type of open pore than ash would
Mm-hmm.
be. The open pore. It's still got pores, but it's just more of like a dog hair look.
Right.
Rob, is that a vintage DiMarzio Super Distortion?
I would have to ask Jerry because when he sent it to me, he had it, and knowing him, it probably is.
Yeah, because on my route, I did a DiMarzio PAF like in 1970s, and in fact, my Megazone that I'm kind of slowly building out here. While we're talking about Dan Electroneck, this was also a replica Dan Electroneck that Carl Sandoval used. Anyway, that's another vintage DiMarzio PAF that I got on this, and my second one's in the route that I got in the other room.
Wow,
nice. So real quick, I have to rub this into Rob a little bit because I know he's got one coming, but
is it all painted already?
It's all done, my friend.
Can you believe that?
That's the neck you just got?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Very cool, dude.
It is ridiculous. It is so good.
Don't drop it.
No, I only drop Les Pauls.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can drop that. What are you going to do? Relic it?
Well, Eddie dropped it 1,000,000 times.
Exactly.
Hey, be careful about dropping that one, too, because you don't want that laminated headstock to split off where we glued it on.
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible, man. That is awesome.
Look at how see how thin it is, how thin the headstock is, the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Wow. So, Donnie, you nailed that.
Done right.
So, Donnie, are you doing those completely yourself? How are you guys doing that?
Yeah, I'm doing them everything up to the point of final sanding, and sometimes complete if it's a certain situation. Like, never mind. But sometimes I completely fret them, but most of the time I'm building them in big batches, shipping them to Chris, and Chris will fret them and send them out. That's how we're keeping production moving. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, we're just kind of trying to orient this, because we work together, in a way to keep both Chris's legendary fretwork up to standard, though I think I get pretty close. I don't think I'll ever get as good as what Chris does. And also to keep things moving, like I was saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, I mean, the thing with fretwork is just keep doing them. Keep doing them. You get better at it, you know. And the real artistry in fretwork is when you're sighting a neck, when you're looking down it, and you see these perfect little Indians in a row.
Yeah.
You know, the fret edges. There's not a couple of them that are up a little bit. They're all perfect little straight little. You know, it's like railroad tracks, perfect in a row. That's when you know you got it. And they're, you know, and the string pull is perfect to the sides of the fretboard. It just, my God, there's an art to that. And Chris has it. There's 3 people in the world that I think have it, maybe 4. And I'm going to say John Sir is one of them. Probably, what's his name down in Nashville? He makes Music City bridges. What the hell is his name?
I know what you're talking about.
He's the big cat down there. My friend Larry Fitzgerald and Chris Locke. These 4 guys have the front where they have it down. They just, my God. Everyone else.
Wow, that's a hell of a compliment, geez.
I'm telling you, when I tell you your fretwork is amazing, it's amazing. Because there are not a lot of people in the world that I trust doing fretwork where I don't have to have it redone. And it's those 4 guys.
Chris,
and I'm sure there are some guys I don't know that do a really great job. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we got to make Chris's screen a little bigger. His head's getting inflated here.
I also have to thank my wife
back
for
up.
realizing that I'm losing my voice, so I have some water. Thank you so much.
I didn't realize
Thanks,
she
Ed.
changed her name. She changed her name to what was it? She said something. What was it? Oh, Desi.
Desi.
Okay. Yeah, we are fun together, aren't we, Desiree? Well, I guess I'll show this. So this was, I think Chris did 2 of them. He did one for me and one for Hubbard. This is the yellow double neck. And it's a real Kramer beak neck. And this is the, I don't know, I know it's kind of blurry, but this is the 12 string
Awesome.
that I got from Scott, and he did a great job. It's not a real aluminum; it's just painted that way. But you can tell we put the little the bushings in there, the ferrules, and everything, and it came out really good. The interesting thing is, it's got the thumb wheel, like the EVH, which
Well, that's kind of cool. It
Yeah,
just makes it easy to work on.
it is. It's not totally accurate. I was going to put a piece of electrical tape over it just to cover it, but I mean, I really don't care. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. It was something that at the time, I mean, gosh, I have had this guitar for, Dave, what have I had this for?
A couple years now.
Well,
3 years?
4 years.
3 or 4 years. Yeah. I remember when you were building that, Rob.
Yeah.
Real quick. Tim Thomas says, I want a 5150 just like Dave's. Well, Tim, you're in luck. If you contact me, my team will build you one. We'll talk price. We'll get it built for you. Takes about 6 to 7 months.
Donnie, is that mine?
We can
It's
talk
not.
price.
This is
Let me
yours,
know.
however.
Okay. Nice.
Everybody hold up parts of guitars that Rob owns.
I pulled yours off the CNC today. I was building it a couple days ago. I got sick, and believe it or not, in the middle of CNC machining it. So I just left it on the machine, and I had to wait until the humidity cooled down because I don't want to cut it when the humidity is too high. But yes, this is yours.
And I see something hanging in the background that's going to be mine too pretty soon.
Well,
Not that exact one,
but this exact neck. I got your stuff. We got your stuff all over the place, right? Just sitting around.
Awesome, no, that's a go. That's definitely a go. Just real quick on this guitar, I was just going to say one thing. I've owned guitars with Rockingers. Now the real one, this is pretty much what we think Ed had on his. It's a Schaller Badass. I'm pretty sure, Donnie, don't you think that's what Ed's was? It was a Schaller Badass wraparound.
We've been looking into it. It's close, but it's just not. It's
Really?
so
Okay.
close. We want it to be, but it's just not, and we can't figure out what the hell it was.
Well, Paul Unker told Dave when you and I went to see him, Paul built this guitar for Ed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul told us it was a Schaller.
And if you ask Eddie, that's the only guitar that they ever built for him.
Yeah, I know.
Well, and you know,
I
what?
never listened to what Ed said because Ed didn't remember anything. But I
it
do.
very well may have been a Schaller Badass, but they might have been different that particular year or
think it was a
something.
prototype, Donnie. Like
It could have been. It's different than a production one you can get today. That's for sure. But it's very subtle. Is
Yeah.
the thing.
Well, on the 6 string, so that's what I have. I have this Schaller Badass kind of wraparound, which is what Hubbard and I used on both of ours. Hubbard doesn't have his anymore. Obviously, it's 12 string. But on the 6 string, Eddie had a Rockinger. Mine's not accurate to that because I just didn't really want to put a Rockinger on it because I've owned guitar Kramers with Rockingers, but I put a Floyd nut on it with no clamp because, probably looks a little bit better. And this is a
Washburn?
a Washburn bridge. And it's funny because it looks kind of like a Rockinger. It looks as close as you can get to one without having it be a Rockinger. So all I did is I ground off the logo, and I'll tell you, it plays great. It's awesome. Nice low action. This is kind of what the back looks like. And I'll tell you, this was the first one of these that Chris did, and he freaking crushed it. Chris Locke, and Hubbard painted it. and it was, yeah, this is it. And this thing plays amazing. It's a great guitar.
Nice.
I love having it.
Well, there you are.
It's a very rare one.
Awesome.
So we're at the 10:16 mark. We're at 2 hours and 16 minutes. Are there any other things that you guys want to talk about before we say goodnight?
Chris, you got anything?
I don't think so. I think we got it all covered.
For now.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah,
you'll
well,
design something new, and Rob will put it in order, and then we'll do this all again.
Of course, we will have a part 3 at some point when there are even more things to talk about.
I learned so much tonight.
There
is-
so much
there
every time.
There are
One thing
always
real
things
quick.
to talk about. Go ahead. I'm
One
sorry, Don.
additional thing real quick, only because Rob came in and I've got mine right here. Might as
Okay.
well bring out.
Oh, I know what he's going to bring out.
This is the first and one of 2 that I've ever made. Rob's is the other one. This is the original miniature Les Paul that I made. Now it's missing some parts, and what's funny about that is that I was so behind on some other stuff, and I was like trying to catch up to get Rob's done in a timely manner. So I just took some parts off my own, including some like the cover plates and stuff, and that's what went out the door for Rob's. But this is the original Petulat mini Les Paul that I made. You know, totally legit construction, the same way the neck is laminated and the speaker. Now check this out. That's a built-in speaker that you pull a push-pull, and it's just like the original. Got a built-in speaker, and then if you put it down, it just goes out to the amp. But
that sounds amazing. I tell you, I love mine. Donnie knocked it out. I remember the day that I sat in my car and I messaged him, and I was like, "Hey, can you do one for me?" And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Do one." And you know, and if you guys watch and follow my Instagram and Facebook tomorrow, I'll be driving out to see Craig at CHS Custom Guitars, and he has mine all clear coated and finished. It's going to look like glass. He even redid the binding, because when I did the amber stain on it, I didn't mess it up, but I got a little sloppy with it, and it would have been fine. I mean, Dave's already seen it. Dave saw it at EVH Con. It looked fine. It played great. Everybody loved it. It was a hit, but
You all saw this right here.
Yep.
This is you can't get a wife to say this at all. But my wife wants you to build her one there, Donnie. She wants one.
Well, I was literally just about to say to anyone who wants to know, no, I'm never going to do one again. But because I'm in great company, we can talk about that. It's a very special little build. And I was also going to say the second part of that is that little thing, believe it or not, you know, it might look like a little package. This is the most complicated guitar I have ever made by far.
It has to be because of the measurements.
Well, yeah, the measurements and the built-in amp, and just and it's got like a crazy, like a Les Paul style tenon that's very difficult, and the mini pickups. It's crazy. It's a difficult thing to build and expensive, but
Donnie, wouldn't it be fair to say? I mean, I hope I could have sworn you told me that you actually. I hope I'm not saying that out of line here. That you actually did work with Dave Petulat on building that.
It would be a stretch if I claimed that I worked with him. However, when I was looking into the R&D, I was trying to figure out the scale length. I built a couple prototypes that didn't go anywhere. I couldn't figure out how to get to the right size. And I saw David was out there, and I messaged him. And I said, "How did you make this thing, man?" And he said, "It's simple. I took a Les Paul fretboard, a 24 3/4 inch scale fretboard, and I cut the first 4 frets off. That's all I did." Now, he didn't use an actual Les Paul fretboard. What he means is that he used the scale. He cut one to the right scale, and he just cut the first 4 frets off. It's the same thing as putting a capo at the 4th fret or whatever. I don't remember if it's the 4th or 5th. But I thought, man, that's genius. That brings the scale length down without having to do any crazy calculations.
Right.
So sure enough, I went into CAD, and I used my plugin that calculates fret slots. And I did it to that scale, and I scaled the picture to it, and sure enough, it laid out exactly identical. So I built it up. I kind of toyed with it for a while. The next step was, figuring out the built-in electronics, which was crazy, and all the stuff like the carved top and the binding and the complex boutique style features you don't get out of typical solid body guitars. And so it would be a stretch for me to claim that I worked with Dave, but I did get information out of him to get it correct. And then sure enough, now this I can with a little bit more confidence say, and I'm not at all peeved by this, David has done some other ones in the past, but he has not done ones exactly to the spec of Ed's. When I did mine and then yours, David is now doing them to the
all of a sudden. Whoa, isn't that a coincidence?
But he's doing a great job, and I'm glad he's doing it because I don't want to do it. And the fact that the original guy is doing it is much cooler. And thank you, if David Pestolat, if you ever see this, thank you for allowing me to make one for myself and one for my buddy and not coming after me because, I'm just a guy in a workshop. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I appreciate it too. And mine is never going anywhere. I don't care who makes one, whether it's the original person or not. Donnie Ward's will stay in my collection permanently.
It's pretty awesome. I've actually played Rob's guitar, and it's pretty damn cool. Now, and Don, we'll talk off air about something like that in the future.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't need to have the little amplifier, the speaker in it. Something to make it a little less strenuous on you. But when Desiree says she wants something, I try to make that happen for her. She hardly ever asks for anything. So she wants one, I'm going to try to make it happen. But
we'll make it happen.
We'll talk about it. Anyway, guys, we're going to cut it right here, but stay on the line with me. We'll say goodbye off air. Chris Locke and Donnie Ward. My God, Chris Locke Guitars, Vestige Guitars LLC, Rob Johnson, for God's sakes. How about Rob joining us? Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to everyone in the chat that continues to join us every Thursday night. I know that we get a few more people on Van Halen nights, Van Halen talk, Van Halen style. I promise you we will try to have a Van Halen type show once a month at least. Ben Coombs, stellar. I cannot ask for a better partner. You're so easy to work with. You and I are on the same page all the fucking time.
You don't mind me asking the silly questions on occasion, Dave, because you even have the answers. It's awesome.
Well, listen, we both know what the other one doesn't know. There are things that you know that I can't answer. There are things that I know that you can't answer. I have never worked, and listen, I've had some great partners in the past. I'm never going to say anything bad about anyone I've ever worked with. Johnny Bean, Ty Price, everyone, they've all been great. They've all been great. But working with you is 100% of a pleasure, and I can't think of a better person to be my partner.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you so much.
I love doing this show.
We will do a part 3 at some point.
Yep.
Rob, you have an open invitation anytime you want. You know that.
I know.
And I need to speak to you about me and Desiree coming to visit you next month. We have dates I will talk to you about to see if you have that in the clear.
Yeah, we got some stuff we're going to do. We got some really fun stuff.
Yes. So stick around. All of you stick around for the next 2 minutes, and we'll talk off air. Everyone, good night. We will see you next Thursday night. I don't have a guest planned for next Thursday as of yet. You never know what's going to happen. But even if we don't have a guest, that Ben and I will have a good show planned for you.
Heck
and
yeah.
yes, even though I kind of showed you this a little bit.
We're talking about that next week, Dave.
We'll talk about this guitar next week. And it'll be the subject of next week's show. So
Dave,
have a good night, everyone. Go ahead.
Just one quick thing. Daniel Vanderlinden said that Craig has his Music Man build, the amber one. You had it cleared the other day. Yeah, Dan, I actually saw it when I was out there the last time, and I'll check it out tomorrow. So I'm sure it's going to look great. So that's good work.
Awesome.
All right, so thank you so much for showing up, guys. It was, there's a lot of takeaways from this show. A lot of things that I've learned. I'm sure a lot of things that everyone have learned here. Order your parts, order your bodies and necks from Chris and Donnie. Make sure you get your 5150, your 1984 Make sure you get your Frankenstein bodies and necks. Get your stuff from these dudes, and then have me build it.
Yep, exactly.
All right? Get in touch with me. It's www.theguitarwhisperer.guru. TheGuitarWhisperer.guru. You get in touch with me that way. We'll talk price. We'll talk how long it takes to build, and we'll talk about your build. And if you don't want me to build it yourself. And good luck. A lot of people are doing it, and I am proud of everyone that is taking things. Although I could use the money always, build it yourself. You'll be very proud of it.
Yeah.
We'll talk next week. Have a great week, everybody.